Hello, everybody. Pop culture curator here. So good to see you, and I'm so happy to be back with two more episodes of Gilligan's Island. We're on season two, and we're nearing close to the end of the second season. And I'm joined by my good buddy and fellow panelist, Gorilla's Random Thoughts.
Yep,
And good to see you, Gorilla. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing.
Fantastic. How are you doing with the popcorn sales?
Well, he met his goal. He's
Oh,
ranked
already.
39th in the council there. But we still got some work to do. We still got a lot of popcorn to sell.
Well, I wish I was closer. I would be the first one to order some. I'd order a whole box.
Not at these prices.
I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah, one of the guys that works up there in the office, I asked him if he wanted any popcorn. He says, he flat out said, not those overpriced stuff.
Now, I know I haven't dealt with the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Weeblos in many years, but I know with the Girl Scouts with their cookies, they're at least double the price of what they're worth. What would you say the stuff is for the that you're selling? Is it like double the price? Would it be at store? Triple, quadruple? What do you think?
Probably about triple. But the thing is, it's all part. One part is the company that we get it from. Second part is it's going to a good cause. So yeah, it's going to be way overpriced.
You always got to go through those companies, and the only difference with the company is because it has the label on it for the Cub Scouts, right?
Well, it has like a futures leader thing on it.
Right. And so
Um,
is it 50-50? Is that what they want? The split?
70%.
They want 70?
No, they give us 70%.
Oh, they keep 30. Got it. Well, that's not so bad, I guess. I know with the Girl Scouts and all that crap, it's 50-50. And I remember when I was working at the schools, you would every now and then they would sell like candy bars and stuff like that door to door. That was 50-50. So 70-30, at least the bigger chunk is going to you guys. So that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
LDG, good to see you. LDG says applause. I hope you're having a great day, LDG.
Hey,
And I'm
pickle.
and I want to say I'm sorry, LDG. I'm pretty sure that was last night. I think you kind of dozed off a little. I know my stream kind of went late, and I always blame myself when that happens, LDG. So I was just telling Gorilla behind the scenes that we're going to try to keep it a little shorter tonight because Gorilla is 2 hours ahead of me, and LDG you are 3 hours, which is even later. So I'm going to try to definitely keep tonight short. That's the only problem with streaming on weeknights.
Oh, well, good thing you didn't fall asleep on the panel because I got a rule on my streams that if you fall asleep on the panel, your name is going to get changed.
Oh well, he may have dozed off a little, but we muted him. I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but I'm not going to boot him off because I figure he might be he might wake up and might doze off just temporarily, but it
Oh,
doesn't bother me. He's a good guy. I don't care.
oh no, we just changed his name on it. Jerk beat me to it though.
I'm trying to think. I think somebody may have last night. I don't remember honestly.
Only people who actually run the stream can change their name.
Well, oh, so like a producer cannot like you can't.
I can, and you can,
That's
but
right. You weren't there, so I guess nobody did then.
no. If I was known that, I would have stayed up a lot later.
Just so you can enjoy yourself and laugh. And I want to say hello to the Phantom Boomer Explorers. Hello, Phantom Boomer. Glad to see you. Glad you could join us. He says hi, Pop.
Hey, Boomer.
And LDG says, hey, gorillas. And hello, Basil, Battle Dragon. Basil says, ahoy there, mates. How are you? I
Hey,
am doing really well. I feel better. I hope my voice sounds better than it did last night. I know I missed Monday's Lost in Space, but I will return. Ooh, that's right. I've got my chemo coming up tomorrow. But I'm hoping that I don't have that bad, those bad 3 or 4 days that I had last month. I'm hoping I'm going to talk to the doctor tomorrow and see if there's something she could do about the dosage or something because I don't want to go through that crap again.
yeah,
But yes, Basil, good to see you too. I am doing better. I feel really good. How about you, Gorilla? Good?
yeah, and welcome, Suzanne.
Yes, hello, Suzanne, the great and wonderful Suzanne. So good to see you.
Yeah, and she's saying hi to everybody here.
Yeah, and I feel bad. I want to apologize to everybody, and Suzanne's one of them. We ran so late last night. I'm so sorry, Suzanne, about that. It didn't help that I was a half hour and a half late. I mean, geez, I'm not usually that late. Suzanne says hello, Gorilla, and Suzanne says Phantom hello, Basil hello, and thank you for dropping that link to Phantom Boomer's channel, Suzanne. And I want to make sure we cover drop a link to Suzanne's fundraiser, which should be popping up. I mean, we still haven't determined if her fundraiser is in the Stream Elements bot. So let me know if you spot it. And Suzanne, let you know if you don't spot it or if you do spot it. And I want to make sure the link does work. And I'm going to remind everybody about that as well tonight. I'll wait till we get a few more people in. And thank you for dropping in a link to LDG's channel. I appreciate it, and I'm sure he does as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say, Gorilla, before we get started?
No, I was actually looking forward to talking about the second episode.
Oh, really good, because I've got a few things to mention about that one, too. All right, I'm going to be queuing it up right now, getting it ready. The first episode, that is.
I just skipped the first one.
Yeah, let's just skip the first one. Don't start acting funny now, computer. Okay, there was a little bit of a delay, but it just started. Okay, and let me get us back to the beginning. Let me get the subtitles ready to go. All right, here we go. Okay, I know people are going to start coming in. They're usually a little slow coming in, but I figure that everybody's seen the beginning, so I don't think they'll miss anything. Oh, almost forgot. Shame on me. Uh, we're on season 2, episode 23, Ship a Hoax, and this episode aired on Thursday, February 25th, 1966. And the description is as follows: the professor believes the castaways may be beginning to suffer from island madness, so he convinces Ginger to use her quote psychic powers to convince them that a boat is coming to rescue them. I don't know if I've heard of island madness. I know I've heard of
It's a thing.
cabin fever.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Same as cabin fever.
It's the same thing, just changes based on the location.
Yes. And we got our excellent beginning intro here.
Ugh.
Oh, by the way, I want to thank all of you who, if you were here for last night's stream, thank you, and especially for being patient on it because of me being so late last night. But it was a great stream. Everyone was excited. A lot of people were talking. So I guess Jurassic Park was a good choice.
Yeah, we just gotta rein it in a little bit there and make sure everybody gets their chance to talk. That's all.
There was a lot of parts where everybody was talking over each other. There was like two or three people talking at a time. So yeah, I know everybody got excited, but I need to remind everybody one at a time. Stay on topic. Stay on topic.
Stay on target. Stay on target. Oh,
Yes.
Why am I just? Why am I saying it when it could just be like this?
Stay on target. We're too close. Stay on target.
Exactly. But I'm glad they were excited. So obviously, if they're talking, that means they're having a good time. So that's always a good thing. So here we open up with the professor. Looks like he's studying. He's got a book and he's writing notes. The months of isolation, monotony, and boredom. Apparently, he's working on some sort of diary. The months of isolation, monotony, and boredom, combined with the lack of any hope of rescue, is driving us closer and closer to island madness. Before we are at each other's throats, and Gilligan, now he overhears Gilligan and the skipper in their hut. But Skipper, I gave you an order. Now move it.
Wait. You know all the problems we had in the first few episodes with our hammocks? Yes.
Yes.
Why did they just do this?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they were trying to get You mean why did they do this in the beginning?
Yeah.
Maybe because they're buddies. I don't know. You're right. They could have done that.
Yeah, they're having so many problems. They could just put them side by side or one on each side there.
And after this episode, they'll probably go right back to one on top of the other, right?
Yeah.
That's ripe for a lot of comedy, so that's probably why.
Yeah, it's for comedic relief, but then it's funny how Skipper gets the door, right down the middle.
Right. Well, if you look, it's not. He's even got a little bit bigger part. It's not exactly 50-50, but that's understandable. And I wanted to bring up this is an old trope that I had forgotten about. There was a lot of shows back in the 60s and I think the 70s, sitcoms. And it was the same thing. There was two people that got in an argument or discussion or disagreement, I guess, an argument or disagreement, and they divided their room or living room with a stripe, just like we're seeing in this episode here. So this, I don't know, have you ever seen this before, Gorilla, on any show before?
I think didn't the Brady Bunch do that?
Probably so. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, in the 70s. So I'm sure they did. It was a trope that a lot of sitcoms did back in the day.
Yeah, let's see. There was the Brady Bunch did that. There's a couple more. I've seen it multiple times.
Yeah. Everybody did it at one point or another. So yeah, I'm sure anybody that's probably watching this stream can be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before."
Yeah, and that might be why I enjoyed the second one better because we've seen this on so many times.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I had to share my room with one of my brothers, and I wanted to do this so bad. And just like this, one of us, if I'd have divided the room, only one of us would have had the door. And the other one would have had no way to get in and out of there. At least Gilligan, fortunately, does have a window, I guess, which we'll get to that.
Well, if I had to share and we did this, our parents would have gotten so pissed at me.
Well, yeah, and they're definitely not going to let you draw a stripe on through the whole room.
Fortunately, we all had our own rooms there.
God, you're lucky. Oh, you're lucky.
And even if my sisters had to share a room, by Minnesota law, I had to have a separate room.
You mean the boys and the girls?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was because I was born and raised in California, and I don't know if that was a law or not. But
well, we're also 20 years apart there. But me and my sisters are all like fairly close in age, and it's required that the boys and the girls must, or it used to be, and nowadays I don't even fucking know what's going on these days. But it used to be the boys and the girls had to have the separate room.
Well, for us, there was some points where all the kids, and my mother had 5 kids. There were some points where all 5 of us were in one room. And there were some points where all the boys, which was 3 of us, were in one room and the girls had their own room. But I didn't have my own room until high school. And that's because my older brother moved out. So that kind of helped. And there was enough rooms where we were living to where my other brother had his own room, fortunately. But yeah, I remember I didn't get any privacy until I was probably about 16, 17 or something like that. But oh well. So here we have Skipper and Gilligan arguing back and forth. That's your problem. And it is interesting to see with these two characters, Gilligan actually standing up for himself for a change and being upset. Now, Skipper, he's always blusterous and yelling and everything else. But it's interesting to see Gilligan actually tired of it for a change and defending himself. So as you can see, there's that big white sack that apparently has Gilligan's clothing in it. So Skipper throws it to Gilligan's side. Go ahead.
I thought that was someone else's crap that Gilligan offered the store for him.
Well, that's just it. Skipper says you keep your stuff on your side, and then that's what Gilligan says. That's not my stuff. I'm saving it for or holding it for someone else. And he says that's your problem because it's on your side. And he says I'll stay on mine. You stay on yours. And then here's where Gilligan brings it up. He says without going, he goes, I'm going to go through the door without going through your side.
Wait, couldn't they just build a storage hut for everybody's extra crap? They have like designated slots for everybody.
That's what I would have done. And they haven't brought that up before that he's storing everything in his for them, I guess. On the inside, you stay off my side, or maybe the fact that They just hadn't gone through the effort of building an extra hut for storage. But they, remember now they had from what they've established so far, they had a extra hut for their ammo, and they also had an extra hut for their food. Right?
I thought the ammo and the food was in the same hut, though.
It could have been, but wasn't that hut destroyed when Gilligan shot a rocket into it? I think.
Oh, that's the flare episode, and they destroyed all the bullets and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Everything survived except the canned beef.
Right. Well, apparently they had a whole case of it. Yeah. So you figure, in the last week episode, Skipper was talking about he was sick of eating island food, but I guess apparently he was sick of eating corned beef too, because they had plenty of that for later on in the next episode, which we will establish. So
It's corned
spoilers,
beef,
everybody.
actual beef.
Have you ever had it?
I think I actually got some dried beef, or actually they might have some in the pantry I bought for some reason. I don't know why.
It's in a can, and it's got
Yeah.
potatoes in it. It's mixed. It's like a beef, some kind of beef mixture with potato.
Okay.
When I was a kid, we went to the drive-in movie. I don't remember what movie, and my mother had a can of it. She opened it, and we could smell it. We're like, what is that? And she said, "Oh, it's corned beef." And I remember it had an odd smell, and I remember tasting it, and I couldn't remember. I remember tasting it. And then years later, I always see it at the store when I pass by it, and I'm thinking, I always remember that night at the drive-in thinking, yeah, that's corned beef, but I don't remember if I like it or not. And at one point, I finally bought a can and tasted it, and I wasn't a fan. But I'm not a fan of canned beef in general. I don't like Spam. I don't like Potter's meat. I don't like devil's food or liverwurst or any of that kind of stuff. So if you do try it, let me know what you think. I'm curious. On the inside, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think I got to mix it with some gravy. I'll figure it out and use for it.
Well, if you could put gravy on it, something to taste it first.
Well, you mix it with like your biscuits and gravy there.
Yeah, that might work. Me, usually when I'm eating something that's what I was going to say. Taste it first, see if you like it. And then if you determine that you do like it, it really doesn't matter what you eat it with. I mean, you could have it with mashed potatoes and vegetables, whatever you want. But if you decide you don't like it, you might have to do like what I do. And I always smother, I don't know, ketchup, gravy, anything I can find to just drown out the taste.
Beer.
That might do. I don't know if it'd be in a strong enough taste. But if you can remember, yeah, when you do taste it, let me know what you think. I'm curious.
Hey, it'll taste a lot. Hey, just drink some pretzel stout. I guarantee you, anything you eat will taste like heaven.
One thing I won't eat, unfortunately, right now I'm not desperate enough, but I was never a fan of liver. And every now and then my mom would make liver. I hated it. Oh, my goodness. I would dump like a half a bottle of ketchup, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious to see what cow tongue tastes like, but we're getting way off target here.
Yeah, we are. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
So
let's catch up on chat since we're off target.
Thank you.
All right. Basil is smiling. Gorilla says, give Gorilla a sub. So thank you, Suzanne. And thank you, Basil, for the sub.
Very cool.
Says, sorry, I fell asleep. And check out Euler Greg's according to Stream. So Stream Elements is working.
Good to hear. Now, if you guys let me know if Suzanne's link is coming up and if it works.
Yeah. And Suzanne says, my boy hates canned corned beef.
That makes two of us.
Wait. You said you couldn't remember, so.
No. That's what I'm saying is years later, I bought it and I did not like the can. I threw it away. I took one bite and I was like, yuck, and threw it out. So I did. I bought it because I couldn't remember. Now, like other stuff like Spam, I remember. I don't like it. And the one that's got a little devil on it, that can, it's really expensive, like $3 or $4. And it's Potter's meat or something. I remember. I don't like that either. But canned corned beef was the only one I could not remember. Sorry, go ahead.
No, all right, then Suzanne says if you fry it up with cabbage and eat it with mashed potatoes and gravy. I don't like cabbage though, so.
Well, what I like is to buy corned beef and cabbage and make it homemade. I think that's delicious because I like sour stuff. So I like dill pickles. I like apple cider vinegar, like with green beans or like spinach. So if I make it myself, I love cabbage and corned beef
Oh, you'd
with
love
potato.
sauerkraut then.
Yeah, sauerkraut. I wasn't a big fan when I was a kid, but I've grown to every. Sometimes I'll buy it. It's really expensive, and I don't know why. All it is pickled cabbage, but it's expensive. So I'm guessing maybe a lot of people don't buy it.
Oh, I'll check the store here, see how much it is here, because the stuff we had here was like only like $3 or something like that.
Right, but you know how it's in a can, right? My problem is like tonight. I'll like for example, if I like make a couple of corn hot dogs, and if I open up the can of corn sauerkraut, I won't be able to use it the can before it goes bad because I'm not gonna have hot dogs again tomorrow and again and again and again until that can's gone. I usually like if I have hot dogs tonight, I won't have them maybe for another week or so, and by then that corned beef is going to be bad. So if they sold it in smaller quantities, maybe I would do it. Sometimes when I go to buy hot dogs that are already made, like at I don't know, like convenience stores or whatever, yeah, and they have it as a condiment, I might put some on there. But I can't eat a whole can before it goes bad. Is the problem. And here we are talking about food again.
Yeah, all right. So we're all caught up. We're all caught up. Gotcha.
Okay, so we have Gilligan and Skipper arguing, and Skipper's telling Gilligan to keep on the inside, stay off my side, because Gilligan asked about how am I going to get out the door.
I would just use the door.
Right. Well, yeah, of course. And Gilligan even asked Skipper with it, why do you get to side with the door? And Skipper says because I'm in charge, and because I'm the skipper, of course, because I'm or the captain. And And here's Gilligan actually does tell him the truth. He said, well, we're on land. We both have equal rights. So this, like I said, this is the first time Gilligan's ever spoken up.
Hey, you only have rights if you're willing to fight for them.
Well, normally you could say, maybe when we get rescued, you can give me orders again because we're not serving in any military right now. And Skipper was even shocked. He said, what? And he said, yeah, I said I got rights too. Gilligan, you got what I decided you got, and that's all. And Gilligan steps over there just to test him, and Skipper says back, and reminds him this is my side, and that's your side. And then we cut to Gilligan with all these bags packed and leaving, and that's when. And yeah, as you know, I mentioned before, guys, I know we're showing these slides like every 5 seconds, so we're missing some of what they're saying. And that's when Skipper puts all that stuff over on Gilligan's side, and Gilligan says, "That's not my stuff. I'm holding it for other people." And then Skipper says, "Well, take it back to them then." And that's what Gilligan's doing. So that's what he's got all these bags for. And of course, he's upset. Just let him try, boy. Just let him try. And here's where now Gilligan's explained to the professor, well, everybody's been using my side for their extra stuff. Gilligan, there is no need to get angry, says the professor. And Gilligan starts to leave, and the professor stops him and says, listen to me for a minute. And he says, to make up with big, and then Gilligan says, to make up with big, fat, and bossy. Oh, forget it. And he says, I can't remember the line that was said. Hold on.
Do I need to pull up a script here?
Well, the problem is, it's hard to, as you know, it's hard to catch all the jokes.
Yeah.
But basically, the professor's telling Gilligan that he was thinking about the island madness, and that people are basically getting sick of each other. And he's telling Gilligan to calm down. And he says it's all caused by 7 people cooped up on an island. This is why we recommend everybody, please watch this episode, because I don't want what we were doing tonight, the stream, to substitute watching the episode. So I highly recommend. That way that you watch it on your own. Sorry, I highly recommend you watch it on your own so you can catch all the jokes.
Yeah. All right. Santa Boomer says food talk is dangerous. He's putting everybody's name in the thing here. All righty. I'll be right back in just like
Sounds good. Sounds good. And the professor continues explaining to Gilligan what island madness is. 7 civilized people shipwrecked near Melanesia. I don't think that's a real location. And I'm surprised they don't mention Why? Like they usually do. All friendly, all helping each other until says Gilligan. And then he says, until we snap. He says, but we're not that kind of people. He said that those people on this island basically all snapped. But I don't think we're this kind of people until they destroyed each other. So they're going to say destroyed. Of course, they're not going to say kill. So Professor said basically he's using an example out of history, saying all these people were stranded on an island until they snapped and they all destroyed each other.
You know what this reminds me of? There's
Okay.
this book. It's God, what was it called? They nicknamed the fat kid Piggy. And he was
Oh, that's Lord of the Flies.
yeah, Lord of the Flies. There we go. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. Only this is a comedy, not the tragedy.
And in Lord of the Flies, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good point. It was the same thing. Everybody started out friends, helping each other, blah blah. But what they did is they broke up into two factions eventually, like two gangs that hated each other. So in here, they don't do that. They don't break up into two gangs. It's basically Gilligan is upset at Skipper, and Marianne and Ginger are mad at each other, and the Howls are mad at each other. So instead of breaking up into two gangs, they're mad at their partners, I guess you could say. And the only one that's kind of neutral is the Professor. And that's because he understands what's going on, which he's just read into Gilligan. And he says, yes, they destroyed each other until they were DEAD, or DED. Gilligan, of course, misspells it. Now we cut to the Howl's hut, and the first thing that happens is Mrs. Howell walks by and dumps coconut milk on Mr. Howell. Lovey, you did that on purpose. And she says, no, I didn't. He says, yes, you did. But you wouldn't dare. And she says, well, in fact, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And Gilligan comes over, and of course, Mr. Howell's yelling, well, what do you want? Well, I know who it is, Gilligan. Must be perfectly obvious, even you. So he says, Gilligan says, are you upset? And he also looks at Mrs. Howell, and she's upset as well. So when he was asking them who are they upset at, and that's what Mr. Howell says, well, it's perfectly obvious, even to you. Mrs. Howell alone too? How come I see you both? I always give it and Gilligan says, I wanted to ask you a question. And Mr. Howell says, I always give it the office.
Yeah, oh yeah, charity, because that's tax deductible.
Right. Well, as soon as he heard the word, can I ask you a question? Right. All Mr. Howell's going to think of his money. And Gilligan says, well, it's just that me and my ex-friend, the skipper. And of course, they're not really listening to him very much. And Gilligan, what's funny is he actually just drops their luggage there and walks out. And now he heads over to the hut from the girls. And unfortunately, the door opens, knocking him down onto that chair. And we have Marianne come out, and she's shouting at Ginger, okay for you, Miss High and Mighty movie star. Find yourself another roommate. And Gilligan's standing there, and then Marianne says, why don't you look where you're going? And he says, I was just standing here. She says, where other people are going. She says, why don't you go where other people are going? That's what she said. And Gilligan says, why are you yelling at me? And she says, I don't know. Well, it's a good enough reason for you. And she storms off. And he knocks on the door, and there's Ginger playing cards. Come in. And he goes in, and he asks, well, whose side is yours? And she says, my side's the right side. And he says, well, which side is Marianne's? She said, the wrong side. And then Gilligan says, well, in my hut, the skipper's got the left side, and I've got the right side. She said, well, then she's got the right side. Why can't you learn to speak English? She says, or you can, and he explains to her that he's bringing their luggage back. And she says, oh, you can put my things there and throw her stuff over there, which is basically the other side. And he asks her, what are you doing? And she says that she's, I'm trying to remember the exact words, but she's basically being a fortune teller. She's using the cards. When I first heard her say that, I thought they were tarot cards, and they're not. So they're oversized regular playing cards. And he asked her, what are you doing? She says, reading the cards. And he says, "What for?" She says, "How many terrible things I can see for her." Oh, fortune telling with cards.
Yeah, this is some bogus crap that they play. I can't believe how much money people spend on this stuff.
Oh yeah, and there are people who actually. You heard of the President Ronald Reagan? Remember him?
Well,
His
I've heard
wife.
of him. I don't remember him. He's probably
Well,
dead before.
well, yeah, he was in the '80s, but his wife Nancy actually had a fortune teller uh, on staff. She was so superstitious. She had a fortune teller on staff, and she would always consult with her every single day. So some people, unfortunately, yes, they take it very seriously.
Yeah,
And if you ever heard of Harry Houdini, he was another one,
yeah.
famous
Your
magician. Him and his wife.
your tax money hard at work there, folks.
That's right. Well, it was worse with the people that would call up on the phone. Remember, are you old enough to remember when they had the commercials on TV where call 1-800 psychic or whatever?
Oh, they
I mean,
still have that crap.
yeah, they do. And a good friend of mine, his mother was addicted to it.
Heck, they still have the phone numbers for that charge you $3.99 for some dirty talk there.
Right, and a lot of that's just recordings, but some people do it. And
Well,
not only that, though.
I don't think it's actual recordings, but there's probably someone actually there just because of the price it costs.
No, right. There's somebody there who will answer original. Like, for example, they have a staff, and there's somebody there who will answer and say, "Hello, my name is Barbara or whatever the name is." But then a lot of times, what they'll do is they play different kinds of sound effects, and that way they don't have to talk a lot. So, like that friend I told you, his mother was addicted to the psychic, and whenever his mother would call the psychic on the phone, she did get a live person, and the person would say, "Okay, I'm going to read your future with the cards. I have the cards in front of me." And then my friend said that his mother would get mad because all he would hear was the flicking of the cards and the what do you call them when you shuffle? That's right, shuffling the cards. So they would call the psychic. The psychic would say, "Yes, yes, I'll look up your future," and then for the next 2 or 3 minutes, all you hear is cards being shuffled. Then the psychic would say something for a few seconds, and then another 2 or 3 minutes of the cards being shuffled. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, that's Gavin right there. That's Gavin.
Yes,
And welcome,
yes.
Weller Greg. Welcome,
Hello,
Weller.
Brother Greg.
He
Good to see
says
you, Brother Greg.
he says hello to everyone, and they're saying hi to everyone. And he says I need a fortune teller on staff. Hey, if you want to throw your money away, go for it. Suzanne says I'm buffering bad here tonight, fellas. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Other Greg says I want one that looks like Ginger.
Oh
Good
yeah,
luck
yeah,
with
yeah.
that.
It should look like Ginger. Sure, I'd have her on staff. And I said, "Oh, do I believe it?" Well, yeah, for you, you're sure I'll believe it. Whatever you say, Ginger.
Hey, you dropped some cards on the floor. No, no, my luck. I'll get one that looks like that gal from Ghostbusters. Yeah,
I always picture an older gypsy with the older lady that's heavy set with the rings and the ears and all that kind of
the
stuff.
gal from Ghostbusters, or not Ghostbusters, Psych, or not, no, Poltergeist. The lady from Poltergeist.
Oh, the little midget lady?
Yeah,
Oops. No offense, any short people. I don't mean to offend anybody. Sorry. I didn't mean that like that.
yeah, and other Greg says, "LOL." I read cards, tea leaves, and palms. Cool.
Don't forget hands. The hand, they also read hand, palms. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, palms. That's what you said, palms.
Other Greg says, "Shields up, Suzanne. I suspect a cloud creature is causing your buffering." And she says, "Gorilla, my best friend did those adult phone calls. She had a very sexy voice and no one could see her. LL. She was 5'3", 509 pounds. Oh,
That's
oh.
what
I
I've always heard. I've always heard that.
hey, I'm just gonna. Okay. No offense to anybody out there, but I'm gonna be honest here. I'm what they call a chubby chaser, but even I have some limits. All right, let's keep
And
going.
Ginger asked him. Ginger asked Gilligan.
Okay, just keep going.
Right, and Ginger asked Gilligan, "Do you want to see me try it?" She pulls up this card here, and she says, "What is this?" And he says, "It's the three of clubs." And she says, "You're wrong. It's the card of disaster." You know what? In a way, I can see now that I think about it. Because remember, this was a family show from the 60s. So I think it would have been a little too dark for them to show tarot cards. Because usually a disaster card for tarot cards is a death. It's got the Grim Reaper on it. And that might be a little dark for this show, I'm thinking. So I'm thinking that's probably why they don't have tarot cards.
Okay, but
So,
I
yes.
actually see that thing there where they say, "What card am I holding up?" Have you seen the movie "Now You See Me"?
Yeah, once. It was okay.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
one.
and that's one of the old that's one of the old gags they do is they'll hold up a card and they'll hide it. They'll be turned around and they'll say, What card am I holding up?" That's an old. They used it in Ghostbusters. Remember the original? Bill Murray was doing that with women and guys, but he kept failing all the guys.
Yeah, no, they showed how that trick's done is they'll have a plant in the back of the crowd there, and they'll give the signal, but they had people in the tower that lighted it up. So like if you pull out the seven of diamonds, there's a guy that gives a sign for the seven of diamonds to the
Right.
people that were in the tower there, and they put then when he goes. Is it the seven of diamonds when he waves his hand back? Like a seven of diamonds would show up in the lights in the tower.
Right. And another stunt they pull is the cards would be marked, meaning that if she's holding up the card like that, there's something on the back of it that's marked that tells her which card it is. And that's what one of the things. In fact, they're called marked cards, and that's why Vegas. If you ever go to, or in fact, any gambling casino that uses, like cards, like people go play blackjack and all that garbage. That's why they always use a different deck between each shuffling, between all the different games. They're constantly going through one deck after another because they want to make sure that when they're passing those cards around, that people don't mark them. So she says, "Wrong. It's the card of disaster. There's going to be a terrible earthquake." And he said, and of course, he says, "Not even, I don't even believe that. Oh, come on, Ginger. I'm not dopey enough." And then as soon as he says that, everything starts shaking. So they're wobbling around and the hut's shaking there.
Oh, so like what they got like a platform underneath? They just rock back and forth.
No, I bet I was going to say that. What they're doing is they're shaking the camera. And they have people out there shaking the set of the hut. Because if you look at Ginger, that's why I kind of shouldn't go back. If you look at her, she's bouncing up and down, not side to side.
Uh,
And
uh,
the hut's shaking side by side, which means there's people out
yeah.
there just shaking it. They have studio hands that are shaking the hut.
You can play a little bit. Okay.
Now, he says, "I'm dopey enough. I'm dopey enough. Okay, okay." And he grabs the card and he tears it in half. And he says, "Which card is doing that?" She says, "The three of clubs." So he grabs it from her and he wants to stop the earthquake. So he tears the card in half. And when he does, the earthquake stops. And he says, "Okay, it stopped." And she says, "Here it comes." Now, what she does, which it was hard to catch in the slides, but behind him is there's a vase with flowers in it, and it starts shaking first. And then she says, "Here it comes again." Now, here's the second time. Look outside the door when it opens. Did you notice the outside was not shaking?
No. I didn't quite catch that there. I didn't even see the
Right,
door open.
right. That's where you could tell that it's just somebody shaking the camera because none of the trees outside. That's why, by the way, let me explain the whole gag. That's why the door is closed and you can't see through it. Usually the doors you could see through them; they're just bamboo, or at least they have a window.
Well, their
But for
door's
this,
always the same as it always has been.
well, but that it's closed basically where you can't see through it because they don't want to give away that there's nothing shaking outside the window, outside the door. But the door accidentally did because remember, like I said, they have stagehands that are shaking the hut itself. So when they do that, the door opens and kind of closes, and it's only a brief split second. But when it happens, you can look outside and see that there's nothing going on outside. And here we go. I'll play it again.
God. Okay, I just caught that. Okay.
Okay. And then Gilligan says, "Oh, earthquake!" And then Gilligan's thinking that she has psychic powers, and he says, "I gotta go tell the others." And he runs out. And she laughs and she kind of looks at the camera and winks.
Oh, breaking the fourth wall.
Yes, she does, but she doesn't say anything. But she does look at the camera. And now that she's explaining to the professor, you see that pot begins to shake just before it hits. And he says, "Well, you convinced Gilligan." Now he's explaining, "Well, the earthquake helped." And he said, "Now listen, Ginger. Well, sure, I can. I learned from the best." He says, "Well, Ginger, you know more about these card gags and stuff." She says, "Well, sure, I can. I learned from the best." And she said that's how she first broke into show business. And I learned from the seance and the crystal ball bit from a phony sheik named Ali Ben Casey. And by the way, I'll make this fast. All of these, and I'm talking tarot cards, psychics, all that have been proven wrong. They have never, no one, not one single person has ever been proved to have any sort of psychic power. So they're all false and they're all hucksters. And they're usually out there, obviously, to rip off people that are a little more naive, I guess you could say. I'll try to say it nicely. But they're basically suckers. No offense to anybody out there. She said, anyway, she learned all this from a phony sheet named Ali Ben Casey. And he said, well, good, can you use this to try to convince everybody that the ship is on its way? She said, well, I don't think I can whip up a ship. And he says, well, it's important that they think one is coming soon.
Yeah. All right. Can we catch up on chat real quick?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Suzanne says, Greg, nah, shared data plan with the boy. And Greg says, okay, but remember, cloud creatures can hide in the walls. Ginger would never cheat.
That's what she's saying right here, in fact. She said, gee, that doesn't seem right. So you're right about that, Oda Greg.
Yeah, then Suzanne says, Greg, he's on the other side of the wall, lol. Just as I suspected, Suzanne. Greg, data booster in 6 days' time. More up and down shaking, please.
Right, I'll have more of that be Ginger.
Yeah, another says, sounds great, awesome, Suzanne. All right, that's all the chats.
When I was in the Air Force, unfortunately, at one point I had stationed pumping gas into airplanes. And they had big gas trucks, they had little gas trucks. And they had ones that were like these little vehicles that were the size of a golf cart. They were made out of metal, and they weren't plastic like a golf cart. And they were gas. And they would pull what they called a hose truck, a hose cart. And Kathy Kelly, I remember she was, most of us were men because it was pumping gas. We had one woman in our unit, and she hated driving the little yellow hose cart because it would bounce up and down. And we used to joke with her about that and tease her about it.
Oh, you can't do that nowadays. They'd have you with a class action there for harassment.
Well, yeah, but one thing that she got away with, that she would pull up at the airplanes. Now, remember, this is the military. Everybody's supposed to do their part. But she would pull up the airplanes with that cart, and then she would talk over to the crew chiefs or the guys that are surrounded the plane, getting it ready for the next flight. She would pull up and say, gentlemen, talking like Ginger does. Can you get that for me? Can you pull that hose out for me? Can you move this and that? And she would stand and let all the men do the work. And that was one thing that the other guys in our unit had no problem doing it. When she was working around the shop, she'd have the guys doing it, and I would say no. I said, it's equal rights. You want the feminist movement. I would say, you got to do it. And she would get upset when I did that. Finally, she learned that she wasn't going to convince me, but I never let women take advantage of me, no matter how young I was, because I saw it all over, and I just didn't think it was right. Even when I was a teacher, when I was much older as a teacher, I would walk into another teacher's classroom for learning lesson or for something, and I'd be walking on the way out, and she'd say, okay, can you be a dear and grab the garbage for me and take it out? I'd say, no. We're equal. We're both teachers. I mean, what is it? And they get mad when I would say no. And they still to this day do. They were always no offense to anybody out there, But they're very convenient with their women's lib. If there's a spider on the wall, they're going to grab a man to go kill it. But if it's or dump a trash can or something like that, and they always get mad when I say no. And I'd even say it nicely. I'd say no. We're both teachers. Come on, respectful. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how nice you are. They would get mad every single time. But anyway, back to what we were saying. So you're right, Greg. Ginger's professor says we need to convince them that you can see a boat coming. And she says, well, gee, I don't think that seems right. And he says, I know, but we've all reached the boiling point, he says. And unless we can give them some sort of hope, he says, everybody's about ready to pull each other's hair out. And he says, will you do it? And she says, well, it's not that simple, Professor. Got to be some setup and conditions, she says, which is true. The phony sidekicks usually have a lot of everything rigged before the seances or whatever they're doing. And then you hear Gilligan, and the three of clubs is the earthquake card. Gilligan, nobody could tell. So here's Gilligan and the skipper arguing outside. And the skipper says, Gilligan, nobody can tell the future. Well, she's going to have to prove it to me, says the skipper, and they both walk away. And he says, now you see, you convinced Gilligan. Oops. And she says, well, in 5 minutes, I could convince him.
Well, you can convince Gilligan about anything.
Right, Gilligan would be he's the easiest one. But the point is, and they're right, is convince him and then let him convince everyone else. And she says, just give me 10 minutes and I'll convince him he's President Johnson. This tells us when this episode was filmed. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the vice president was Johnson. And then when Kennedy was assassinated, Johnson took over until the next election.
Yeah, when Johnson took over, it was literally, that's about the time we entered Vietnam, wasn't it?
No, we were already at Vietnam.
Oh, I thought it was just very, very select, like, training specialist or something.
No, I hadn't heard that before. I could be wrong, but I hadn't heard that before.
Because I thought it's very limited, very, very limited. It's just like basically under JFK, it was just like your training specialists and stuff, like your specialists, just like maybe 1,200 or maybe like a couple hundred people. But then with Johnson, I think we started sending boots on the ground.
Possible.
It was with the Gulf of Tonkin.
I know Johnson was more of a placeholder. He didn't do much, and he wasn't there very long. And then I think if I remember right, he ran against Nixon, and Nixon won.
Yeah, August 2nd, 1964 is when the Gulf of Tonkin incident took course. That's when we started sending boots on the ground.
Gotcha.
But okay, but back on target.
Here's we have outside the hut. And, of course, we have the Howells not looking at each other, still upset. And Skipper's professor said to Marianne, aren't you going to listen to the 12 o'clock news? I don't want to hear what's going on there while we're stuck here, she says. And he says, Skipper, where's the radio? And he says he sent Gilligan for it. And he calls out Gilligan's name. Here comes Gilligan from inside the hut. Well, don't you stand there, put it down. I know, Skipper, but... And he's trying to tell Skipper something, but of course Skipper keeps interrupting him. And he says, I know, Skipper, but... And Skipper says again, turn it on. Oh, never mind, Gilligan, I'll do it myself. And he turns it on and nothing happens. And he says, well, maybe it's just one of those things. Oh, one of what things? And the professor says, well, I'll check it over. And I'll have it working, which is going to be the next few lines here, in time for the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
And the professor walks away with the radio. Oh, which reminds me, that radio, by the way, back in the day, that radio was like any typical AM radio. You could buy it really cheap. And I was looking into the history. I don't know what made me think about it. This was a few days ago. And that radio came out of Sherwood Schwartz's office, the producer. When they started writing the script for this show, he realized they needed a radio as a prop. And he used it to listen to sports and news in his office while he was writing. So what he did was he sent it to the prop department and had them add to it the handle on top, which you can see right above the professor's hand. There's a handle, and also that antenna. So the prop department added the antenna and the handle. But other than that, the radio was a standard, ordinary AM radio. I don't remember the model number. It was like a Bell and Howell BAX 231, something like that. Anyway, so they used it during the duration of the show as a prop, obviously. Even though whenever there was an announcer, we never hear the radio. It's obviously a dubbed over voice. After the show went off the air, after the 3 seasons, Sherwood Schwartz took the same radio, put it back in his office, and continued listening to it and used it all through his career. So they used to build them really good. It lasted a long time. And out of curiosity, I looked up those radios on eBay, and they're going for several hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because people found out how famous they were, found the same model, glued the antenna and the handle on it. And now if you go on eBay and you look up Gilligan's Island Radio, you'll see them selling them for, like I said, 700. I think 700 and something was the cheapest one I found. And I thought that was crazy because normally you would find them for probably maybe 20 or 30 bucks. But there's a lot of Gilligan's Island fans out there, so I can understand it.
Well, one of my old coworkers was responding to a fire down there in Bogie and stuff, and they said in the basement there someone had one of those old life preservers there that they have here on the show that has SS Minnow on it.
I've seen where people sell them because you can buy blank ones and then have the SS Minnow painted on it with a stencil.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah, you can do it yourself, or which I would recommend if you want the SS Minnow, you could do it yourself, which is what I would do if I wanted it bad enough. But some people, you could probably go on eBay and find it where somebody already painted it and selling it for an enormous amount of money, I'm sure, even though all they are is styrofoam.
Yeah,
Life preservers.
I would just do my own.
Exactly.
Hey, and welcome, Herc. Well, welcome. He
Hello,
says,
Herc. Well,
okay.
Herc's been here because he was the one that was mentioning earlier that Ginger shouldn't be cheating.
Oh, was that Tim?
I could be wrong. I don't want to get the names mixed up. I could be wrong.
No, that's Oiler Greg.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I gotta catch up to the stream.
Thank you.
Suzanne says, Herc, hello. Oiler Greg says, hurry, Herc, the jokes are getting stale.
I know. We keep going off topic. I apologize, guys. I'm not going to do that anymore. Hello? Is that it?
Yeah, that's all of them.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I can't see the chat when I have the video screen pulled up.
No.
And he says, now you sit down and listen carefully. He told her that he had only loosened one wire in the radio to rig it where it wouldn't work. So he fixed it and connected the wire again. And he says, now here comes the 12 o'clock news. You're going to make it for Gilligan this afternoon. So he's explaining to her what's going on as they're going to listen to the news. And then she's going to listen to everything. And she's going to, quote, predict the future so that they'll hear all this when they listen to the 6 o'clock news later that day. So here's where they get the scores from sports.
Yeah, 51-7, man. That's a blowout. Don't they have the damn mercy rule?
What's that?
Oh, like I know, like for the non-varsity. Well, I guess that's professional. I know, like some of the high schools here, they'll vote.
Oh, high school. Yeah, well, high school they might be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they invoke the mercy rule, especially in JV. There, if you're whooping their ass so bad, they'll just call the game. Like,
oh man, that ruins it for the spectators. That is definitely something new.
Not necessarily. Like we had a game there. It was fourth inning, and it was 10-0.
It's not fair to but no matter how you look at it, it's not fair to the winner. It's cheating.
Yeah.
It's taking the victory away from the winner, which they earned. So that's something that I wouldn't. I don't particularly go. I mean, it may be a rule or a law. Or
it's like
go for it.
It's basically a real blowout.
Well, but know what it sounds like. It's the same as where they stopped to cut. Like Jill and I were having this. What just I don't know what stream it was, but it was just last week how we were talking about they remove competition. Everybody gets an award. Everybody's as good as everybody. Everybody's special. So that sounds like something that's more recent, at least from when I. They didn't have that when I went to school. That I'm sure of, because that's outright cheating.
So they could go 30-0 in the baseball game by the 5th inning.
Uh huh. Yeah,
Ugh.
because one team deserved it, earned it. Because if you have one team that earns it and you tell them, nope, we're going to take victory away from you because it's not fair to be on your side, they're going to cry
No,
and whine.
they still get the
No.
no, they still get the victory, but they just end the game so it's not demoralizing to the losing
Yeah,
team.
right. And they did not have that. Because that's still taking victory away from the owner. See, we're on a completely different discussion, but either way, you're still taking the victory away from the winner. Because, I mean, what's humiliating? The only way anything is humiliating is if the losing side are poor sports, because the losing side should be able to handle it without whining and bitching and moaning and crying like little. Anyway, they shouldn't be. No. It's wrong on every level, but that's just my opinion. What do you guys in the chat say? Give us your opinion. What do you guys think? So here's what's interesting is now they seem. Go ahead.
Yeah. We have they got something in the chat here, but Oiler Greg says coming to Pop's unauthorized Gilligan's Island radio for just $300. Everybody say hi here. And this is why Boomer will survive the AI apocalypse, because he says hi to him. Everybody say hi to him. And Herc says it quits becoming a game at 65-0. And he says, for the first time ever, I disagree with Pop.
That's fine.
Yeah. But once
I'm a little old-fashioned.
Yeah, well, once you get up to those scores where the other team will have absolutely no chance to catch up, it's just rubbing dirt in their face, might as well
I would quit the team. I would quit if I was on a baseball team, I would quit straight up, because then it's like, what is the point of ever trying again? Every time we're starting to win, they take it away from us. I would quit. There's no way you get me to be on a baseball team knowing that anytime we're winning, they can take it away from us because they don't want to embarrass the poor little babies on the other side. No. But like I said, that's my opinion, which I'm sure is different than a lot of other people. But like I said, I'm old-fashioned.
Yeah. Herc here said you are missing the point. The winner will win, and it gets to the point that it's not a game. It can be ruin people and turn off people on the game. Some coaches will put in B team so that it's not so bad.
Well, who are you? I'm curious. Who are you ruining? The team that's losing? Or are you talking about the spectators?
No. For like the team there where it's just the game will get to the point where they don't. It'll just ruin the game for them. They don't want to try anymore. Like for the losing team, the people still get their win there, but it's one of those. It's just they just end the game, so not to it's like a demoralization thing. And Older Greg says, I'm for making them play through lightning storms, not with aluminum bats and all that. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. That is
in the rain.
So, and then, we played in Rainbow. As soon as the first lightning is, especially if there's any metal on that field, they can't have that because that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Well, yeah, and you're also standing out in the middle of the open where and then there's so many reasons why there's a no. You're much more susceptible to being struck by lightning.
Play or forfeit was our rule, and Suzanne, well, just 6.
No problem.
Sorry, I get correction here. We have the Mercer rule in hockey up in Canada. If we seriously kick an ass, we stop counting. No win for you, Hurt. Let's not put the N-word in the chat there because I'm not sure how strict YouTube is on that stuff.
You
right
could say
now.
Nazi, right? You beyond the other N word. Speaking about a race of people, you cannot say, but you can say Nazi.
Okay. I still want to get your shadow banned for that.
I know, I understand, but no, it's okay. I listen to streams all the time where they bring up the word. Some of them say Yahtzee. I know some of that. I know some people will try to get away from the word, but I've never seen anybody get banned for using the word
Oh, we
because
just call them
they did
California.
exist. What?
We just
Sorry.
call we just call them Californians.
Okay, but that's because there's a lot of people. A lot of people aren't going to understand what you mean if you say that.
They understand it when it's in context.
I'm not sure, but okay.
Yeah. No, we do it all the time on different streams.
But go back to that uh, text or comment. No win for you, Herc. Soup California voice. I wouldn't get that if somebody said that.
Okay, I don't know. I don't even know what this is even referring to.
Oh, I never watched the show, but it's referring to a character from Seinfeld.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Uh, there's Jim's channel, and she says snowflakes want participation trophy. Yeah, this is far from a participation trophy. All right, so let's get back on the thing here because we're
Okay.
still on the first episode.
So we have Gilligan and Skipper now. Interestingly enough, I noticed that now they seem to be getting along great. And hi, Skipper. Hi, Gilligan. And Gilligan tells Skipper that the Navy loses. And he says, "What about my Navy?" And he says, "They lose." And he says, "Of course." Skipper says, "No way. Are they going to lose to the Army?" And he says, "Yeah. How do you know that?" And he said he heard it. Ginger told him. And he says, "Well, Gilligan, I'll tell you what I'll do." So here's where they make a bet. And he says, "If Ginger can predict the future, then I'll give you $5 that she's wrong." And Gilligan says, "Well, I don't have $5." All right, Gilligan, let's put it this way. If she's wrong, you collect the firewood for a whole week, okay? He says, "How about 2 weeks?" And he says, "Well, she's never wrong." He says, "Okay." So they make a bet that the loser collects firewood for the next 2 weeks. A whole week and the 2 weeks. There it is. And here's where Gilligan's convinced. If Ginger says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then he explains to Mr. Howell. Mr. Howell says international pump closed at a record high of 38. Canadian Petroleum. He says he doesn't believe Gilligan. And of course, Gilligan's trying to tell him that Ginger is predicting the future on the stock market. And he says, "Oh, Gilligan, my boy, that is ridiculous." And
Yeah,
it's all true, Mr. Howell. And he says, "Ginger said so." Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's so funny how they can't. All you need is one lucky break, and your stock can skyrocket. And Mr. Howell should understand that.
It has happened before.
Yeah.
But remember, Mr. Howell also, even more importantly, he doesn't believe that Ginger can predict the future. And here's where Mr. Howell says, "Well, she's just pulling your leg." And Gilligan says, "Well, she never laid a hand on me." And he says, "Don't you understand? She's pulling you." And of course, he decides to make a bet with Mr. Howell. Bet, did you say? How about whoever collects? He explains what are they going to bet on because Gilligan has no money. He says that whoever collects water for a week, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to be. So basically, they make a bet on for the following week who's going to be collecting water out of the well every day, which that tells us that I guess that Gilligan does all the work around there all the time, apparently.
Yeah, because he's the bitch boy of the island.
Well, right, and Skipper's always giving him orders. And Mr. Howell sure of himself say that's not a prediction, it's a miracle. Now we have the announcer from the radio. Allied and limited at 4 points. And Mr. Howell shocked, incredible by Army is a 51-7 victory over the Navy. And of course, Skipper is equally as surprised. I could have bet you couldn't do it. Now Gilligan convincing him in 2 weeks worth of wood. And a lot of hot baths for the water, I guess. Come over here. Oh, so here comes Ginger. Now everybody's decided they all want Ginger to sit next to them. So now they're all excited and they're excited. They want to hear her next predictions. I said, well, what would you like to know? And when is the rescue ship coming? I mean, would you? And she said, tonight at 8:30 she'll do the prediction. So here we have of course, our stage. And everybody's excited. Ladies and gentlemen, and Gilligan stands up clapping. Oh, sit down, Gilligan. That's not necessary. And he says, people in show business like applause. The professor isn't in show business. Oh, never mind. So here comes Professor, and this is the second time we've seen him in that jacket. When they had their little talent contest, the skipper, that was also a few episodes back, he was wearing that same brown jacket, I remember. Well, I'll give you one of the wonders of the world. Unheard of. Ladies and gentlemen, Mademoiselle Ginger. And of course, Gilligan stands and starts clapping again. And she has somehow, out of nowhere, they got a crystal ball. I'm getting a vision. It's coming clearer. It's coming nearer, I see. I see 7 people on an island. And of course, Gilligan, I told you. Would you please be quiet, says Marianne.
And every time this is all goes, you tell him, Marianne.
Right. And of course, it's not an actual crystal ball. It's just a glass sphere. It's hollow.
Yeah.
Or perhaps one of my ships.
Yeah.
And she no, I see it. Go ahead.
You know what the best way to tell whether or not something's crystal?
How's that?
You put it in a high temp dishwasher there. If it shatters, it's crystal.
That's one good way to find out. So you're saying why a dishwasher? You mean high temperature?
Yeah, like your industrial dishwashers, like we had at I was working at the restaurant there. They forgot to tell us that we had the one crystal. We had no, it's the punch bowl there. We had one crystal punch bowl and a couple of glass ones there. And they didn't tell us that they had the crystal one with them at that party there because they paid extra for the crystal one. And so they just put it in the dishwasher area, and we're supposed to hand wash them.
Right.
Wash those but no, we just put it in the dishwasher, ran it through, and all of a sudden we just hear the dishwasher big old just shattering all over the dishwasher. In the dishwasher. Oh man, that was a fun half an hour cleaning that crap up.
Well, I don't know if it's only crystal, but have you ever seen a baking dish? They're called Pyrex, where they're designed for high temperature, like ovens. Like if you're gonna make it like lasagna or something like lasagna or a glass pie dish, they're made out of what's called Pyrex, which is designed for high temperature. But anyway, I don't know if it's necessarily just crystal, but I know glass, Pyrex, anything that's that property. If it's hot, like let's say you pull out like a pie dish, and you pull it out of the oven, it's still hot, and if you run it into cold water, the same thing, it shatters. So I'm wondering did it shatter because it was crystal, or did it shatter because it was washing in hot water, and then when the rinse cycle turned on, the rinse cycle was cold.
Well, hot and cold will shatter some stuff there.
Right, but everybody uses dishwashers, and I think they put glass in them, so maybe a dishwasher has a hot rinse cycle. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hot. It's a hot. Ours had hot. Yeah, it's always a hot rinse cycle. It's the temperature is always is constant throughout the whole thing.
And that does make sense. Because otherwise, everything would be shattering whenever you put it in there. It's just that once again, I'm old fashioned. I've had apartments with dishwashers, and I never used them. Even still, in fact, he has a dishwasher here where I live, and I don't use it. I still wash my dishes by hand. I don't like dishwashers, and I don't trust them. All they do is they cake the food onto the dish. Cake or bake, however you want to look at it. So anyway, Ginger says, I see another ship and another and another, and still another ship. Good heavens, they're calling out the entire fleet, says Mr. Howe. And on the side of the flagship, I see the word written, rescue mission. No, it's a uniform. So she says no, she sees somebody wearing a uniform. Now the radio announcer comes on the radio. This is Jonathan Sanders, station WCAU, to bring you a bulletin from Pearl Harbor. Admiral Walker will personally head the search for the missing destroyer, the USS York. which claim the island pleasure. So they're saying they're looking for a military vehicle, but they're saying that while they're at it, they're going to also search for the island pleasure boat Minnow and her 7 passengers. And
Hey, wait,
everybody gets up.
I
Sorry, go
got.
ahead.
There's still. I thought they're still using Pearl Harbor. I thought that was a. I thought they turned the whole harbor into a memorial.
I think there's still ships. Well, there is a memorial. That's the ships that sunk, and they didn't raise them. But it's still a military base, and there's still ships and everything there because they're not gonna obviously abandon it. They're still gonna protect it. It's a very sensitive area. There's still a base there. But the ships that were sunk, they didn't raise them. They left them, and that's the memorial. In fact, that's yeah. There were some teachers when I was teaching that were telling the kids that Pearl Harbor was never attacked. There's no boats down there. There's no memorial on it. All this garbage, because you have to. Even now, it's even worse where they're trying to erase history and they're trying to lie to children. And that was a big thing of contention, and it got some teachers in trouble because obviously the parents came screaming to the school saying, "What are you doing, telling lies to my kids?"
Yeah, and Herc says Pearl is still a very active naval base. Okay.
It's a very sensitive area, yeah. Starting at dawn, so they're listening to the announcer, and the announcer says there's boats, and they're going to go searching tomorrow for that missing USS York. And while they're at it, they're going to search for the ill-fated Minnow and its 7 passengers. Starting at dawn tomorrow, and this is where everybody's cheering, and they're all excited. Even the professor, "Oh, Ginger, what have you done?" I did it. Even she's excited, and then it shows her she almost passes out. Now everybody's in a wonderful mood, obviously. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," she says to the professor. And she fills up his dish of water there. And he says, "I see you've been using a razor to cut bamboo again." And she, "Well, you're as good a fortune teller as Ginger," she says. And he says, "Have you settled your quarrel yet?" And she says, "Yes," basically. Absolutely. "And have you heard anything?" "Absolutely nothing." So he finishes shaving. "Good morning, big buddy. Don't tell me the United States Post Office. It basically sent you a letter." And he says, "No, Ginger asked me to pass these out." And he's reading it. "Oh, Ginger the Great sees all, knows all, tells all." "Yeah, I'm going to pass them out so she'll take me." So she's going to take all of us. I can't remember the exact what we're missing here. I hate this. This is why I don't like reading comedy. It ruins it, and I can't get all the lines, and I don't obviously have the episode memorized. So I apologize, everybody. Once again, I suggest you watch this.
Yeah.
And the professor said, "Well, this is very impressive." She's got her little area set up to predict the future. Why I predicted the. So she's even now convinced herself that she could predict the future because of the announcement on the radio. And he's telling her, but it was just a coincidence. She says, "No, it's not. All you skeptics are the same." And he tells her, "Now listen, Ginger, before this thing goes too far, and he's interrupted, and there's knocking, and here comes Gilligan. And she says, "I'm sorry, Professor, I have a client." And Gilligan says, "That's me, I'm the client." And he's reminding her of Shakespeare, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when at first we practice to deceive." Of course, Gilligan has no idea what he's talking about. What did he say? "Oh, we mystics have problems with unbelievers," she says. And she tells Gilligan to be seated. "Now, what would you like to know?" "What's going to happen to me after we're rescued," he says. And she looks into the crystal ball. "I can't see anything but a dense mist. It's getting thicker. It's getting thicker. It's you, Gilligan." Gilligan's breathing on the ball. So here he wipes it and it's clear again. And she says, "She's a ship." And he says, "Is it the same one as before?" She says, "No, it's a different one." And he says, "Am I on it?" She says, "Yes, yes, you're wearing a uniform." "I am?" And it's got a symbol. And she says, "No, no," on the cap in gold braid. And it says "Captain." "And what else?" "Well, I see you at the wheel, yeah. And there's a terrible storm, a coral reef." And that scares him. And he says, "Oh, yeah, that's enough. That's enough." And he gets up. "Looking, I'm the captain of my own ship, right?" She says, "Yes." And she says, "Heading for a reef, right? Right?" Take a peek." A storm like that again. I know I gotta go tell the skipper, he says. And he goes to tell the skipper. The skipper's packing, and here we have Gilligan crawling through the window. Now hear this, sweepers, man your brooms. And of course, skipper's confused, doesn't know what he's talking about. Gilligan, you couldn't captain a toy ship in a rain barrel. He says, Gilligan, I am a captain. You're going to be a smarter captain than I am, he says. That's because you're not going to hire somebody as dumb as you. And he steps across and he says, back. Of course, he stepped over the line. And there's Gilligan crawling out the window again. And Mr. Howell's all beside himself and excited. And all he's thinking about is the stock market. Ginger money, ginger money. And they have a knock on the door, and here she is. And of course, they're trying to butter up. We've grown very fond of you.
Oh, this is one trope that's common throughout this whole thing. Whenever it's gonna benefit someone, they always just start sucking up to them and tell them how wonderful and how they're their favorite and everything.
Of course, which is very obvious, and of course, and it's always money, of course, because that's the Howell's typical trading card.
Well, even Skipper does it, and the professor's done it too.
Yeah, well, yeah, like in the previous couple scenes where they were betting, but they were betting with labor, obviously, because they didn't have any money.
Well, his previous episodes though too was stuff like that.
Yes, definitely. So Ginger says maybe you two can come to Hollywood. The Hollywoods, the Howells in Hollywood. So apparently they're so rich that Hollywood's beneath them.
Yeah.
And she says, we wouldn't have a passport to Hollywood. And Ginger says, you don't need a passport, Mrs. Howell. And she says, well, where they live, they would need a passport. Oh, lovely, lovely. The present, remember? And he spells it out, the M-I-N-K. Like, Ginger's not going to know what that means.
Oh, she looked confused. She looked confused when they spelled it out.
I know, which is ridiculous. Unless she's just confused, like, why are they talking about a mink? And she says, we're very lonely. He says, we're very lonely. And she says, I thought you had millions of friends. He says, no, we have millions of dollars, but very, very few friends, my dear. Now she has two minks, and she says, which one do you want? Well, first she says, oh, they're both fabulous. And Mrs. Howell says, which one do you want? And then Mr. Howell whispers her to hand her both of them. And she says, oh, for me? Why, of course. Now they're telling her pretty much that give me the prices of 1 hour before the market opens, of course, to Mr. Howell, which does him no good because it's not like he can bet on the stock market from the island. It wouldn't be fair, Mr. Howell. Anybody want to hear the news? Later, Gillian. Oh, but I want to see how close our rescue ship is. Not sure, not yet. So Mrs. Howell asked, did she shake hands on it? And he says, no, not yet, not yet. So Mrs. Howell grabs the mink from them. The latest word on the intense search. Missing destroyer USS York is mission accomplished. The boat has been found. Of course, everyone's been disappointed because now the search mission has been called off. You said they're coming for us. Well, and now he says, tell them. So he's trying to tell Ginger. Ginger saw in her crystal ball that the York was found. He doesn't want to give her up completely and tell everybody that she's been lying, obviously, not to upset them. Mademoiselle Ginger will give you the exact date, hour, and day of its arrival. So she's going to do another reading. And he says, you must do another seance. She says, I won't. And he says, you must. And she says, we're only conning myself and them. And the answer is no, no, no. And Gilligan walks in for what? And she says, to read my future. Gilligan, I've got to tell you something. And Gilligan reaches for the ball and unfortunately drops it on the floor and it cracks.
Yeah, if that was real crystal, it will have been in. It will have just been dust. It will mix finally with that sand.
Well, I was wondering if it would even break because the sand is kind of soft.
No, oh
But
no, no, crystal is very fragile.
you ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz?
Yes, long
That was a
time.
real that was a real crystal ball, and it was one of the most expensive props in the movie. And it's not perfectly round. It's a little lopsided, and it went for it still exists. Big collector's item. And I remember there was an auction, and it sold for several thousands of dollars. So now
Uh,
they're saying they're going to have one more seance. Mademoiselle Ginger, we're ready. Are there any unbelievers present? Unbelievers, stand up. What do we do now, Ginger? Everybody must be very, very quiet. Hold your fingers lightly on the table. Oh, spirits, if you can hear me, make the table rise. Now, you see how the skipper is under the table with a bamboo?
you mean Professor?
Professor, thank you, Professor. And he makes the table rise.
Yeah.
Now, lower the table, oh spirits. And of course, it lands on Gilligan's foot.
And the professor's hand.
Yes. Now,
Thank you, spirit.
now, to give away, it's an old gag, but I'm gonna give it away. The way the sidekicks used to do it, they did not have people under the table because one of the gags that the sidekicks used to do is they would have the gag where the table would rise, but then people would immediately look under the table and they would give it away, obviously. So they were more, but that was a magic trick, and they don't want to give away the trick for this episode. The way they actually really did do it is the other people around the table would be in on the gag, and they're all wearing long sleeve shirts, and they would have knives like butter knives inside the collars of the wrists, the cuffs of the shirts. They would have like butter knives, and then so you'd have like two or three people on each side who would slip the butter knife under the table, and when the sidekick says raise, they would when they raise their hand using the knives in their cuff, that would raise the table, and then they would lower it. So that's the actual magic trick how they would get away with it.
Oh, I saw his like a hydraulic button.
Well, no, they didn't have that kind of technology. And hydraulic, by the way, is very noisy.
Or well, you can't like nowadays you can't really quiet it.
But you have to remember for hydraulics to work, you have to have an air compressor.
Oh,
So now we have the professor under the table making noises with that shell. Does anybody have a question? I have a question. Well, you'll have to write out your question, she says. So they start passing around pieces of paper around the table. And Gilligan, Skipper asks Gilligan, don't you have any questions to ask? But Gilligan says he'd like to talk to his uncle, but he says that his uncle can't read. So that's why we're getting this look here. And this is a note that Ginger passed around to them. And Gilligan, Skipper's shocked. And of course, Skipper is the only one that's seen the note. And Gilligan's still excited. When is the boat? Not soon enough for friends so true, she says. Look for the boat when the moon is blue. Of course, just a few days later, we have the blue moon. Notice how we were talking about with previous episode. No, it's the same one, right? Where they had
yeah.
right, where they had the hammocks on the opposite side of the hut. But I guess now they're getting along just fine. They moved the hammocks back to one side of the hut.
I would have kept it the other way, to be honest.
I would too. And Gilligan goes to look out the window and says, "The blue moon, Skipper, the blue moon."
Yeah. All right. Can we catch up on chat?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Arizona is still where it sunk. Utah was refloated but sunk on the other side of the island. Still there. Well, I thought the. Oh wait, never mind. It was the Nevada that got out of the harbor.
That is correct. I know he's right. That's where the Arizona sunk and some of the other ones.
Yeah. And Basil says, "Yo, Oiler Grade, Prost." Gorilla waving arms wildly. I subbed to your channel tonight. Well, thank you, Basil. Thank you. And PvP says, "Hello, guys in chat."
Hello, PvP. Good to see you.
All right, that's all the chat.
So Gilligan's excited. He says the blue moon, and of course now Skipper knowing because he got that note from Ginger, knowing that it's not really anything, tells him it's nothing. And he says, "I got to go light the signal fire." So he runs out and heads to the lagoon, starts to build a fire, and here comes the skipper telling him, "Look, I'm afraid you're wasting your time building that signal fire." He says, "Didn't you read the piece of paper?" And he says, "No." And he says, "Well, but now I guess I'll have to read it." So he shows Gilligan the note that he got from Ginger saying that she's a fraud.
Yeah.
And Gilligan says, "Where'd you get this?" And he reads it out loud. "Please don't tell anyone I'm a fake."
Yeah. Now the thing with that's there. I thought they would have had a signal fire going in anytime.
Well, they probably would if they've been on the island for over a year, and they're going to end up using all their wood if they do that. What I would do before that is I would have somebody on watch and look for boats or any kind of light on the ocean, and then if I saw it, I would light a fire. But then after a year on the island, they still may not be doing that. Maybe they'd probably give up after a certain amount of time.
Well, if they're conservative and all that, they could make all the trees on that island and all that stuff last for there's enough wood on that island to last them 30 years.
Yeah, but remember, you can only burn dead, dried wood. So you'd have to be chopping it down and letting it dry ahead of time because you can't burn green wood. And Skipper's, I explained to him that when she handed out those blank pieces of paper, she said she was a fake. Well, this is what was written on mine, he says. He says, "Didn't you read yours?" And he says, "No, he just shoved it in his pocket." And now he's going to read his, and it says the same thing.
So you think she handed that to every single person that said the exact same thing?
Well, that's what I thought at first. I thought, well, maybe she handed that note to everybody. And these two are thinking, well, maybe she's only was telling the truth to them, and they considered it an honor that she took them that she trusts them to tell them that she's a fraud. So that they decide not to tell anybody. And he says, "We're the only two people that she trusts, and we're not going to let her down, are we?" "No, siree, Skipper. There's some things bigger than boats." "Exactly right, Gilligan. Exactly right." And they walk away, and we get a joke of a big luxury liner ship right outside the island, which they would have seen if they would have looked. But they were that close to being rescued, I guess.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about how the table go up and down. Like I said, Gilligan, she used some sort of a trick. "Don't you believe in anything, Gilligan?" "I don't believe in magic, if that's what you mean." "Me neither. Now please go to sleep." And you can see we have a rig set up with string. "You want me to get some blankets?" Gilligan asked Skipper, and he says, "No, that's okay, Skipper." And Skipper says, "Sure, yes." And Gilligan says, "Oh, no, that's okay, Skipper, I'll get it." And he pulls the string. And the blanket flies over onto him, and Skipper is surprised. So just another gag. And we have our ending scene. And the good old Gerald Fried, of course, music. Remember now, Gorilla, Gerald Fried did the music for Amok Time that you were talking about last night when you were talking about your favorite music. That was Gerald Fried who did that. So he deserves credit for that.
Okay.
Which is some of the best music from Star Trek. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. PvP says, "LOL. luxury liner they don't see. Hilarious. Oh, through season 2, yeah.
Correct. Yes. Oops. Let me get ready for the next one here. Now we're going to cover the next episode, everybody. Let me size it up and get this just right. And so now we're going to cover season 2, episode 24, Feed the Kitty. This episode premiered on Thursday, March 3rd, 1966. And the synopsis reads as follows. A crate containing a lion bound for a zoo washes up on the island. But while the other castaways are scared for their lives, the lion immediately makes a bond with Gilligan, naturally. And we get our
Yeah.
opening credits, of course. Yes.
Oh no, this was one of the few episodes I actually remember from beforehand watching this.
This has behind the scenes, and I'll cover it when we get to it. There's a really big something that happened. I'll put it that way, and I'll bring it up when we get there. Or I should say, almost happened. We are opening at the lagoon. A lot of episodes seem to open up at the lagoon with Gilligan, and he's running, yelling, "Skipper, Skipper, Skipper!" And we have Skipper working by an empty crate. And of course, Gilligan disturbs him, and he says, "What is it, Gilligan?" He says he heard a lion. Oops, I got to turn on the subtitles. Shame on me for forgetting that. And we should be on episode 24. There we go. He said he heard a noise, and he said, "What was it?" And he says, "It roared. It was a lion." "You saw a lion?" He says, "No, but I heard him. He roared." And Skipper, and of course, he's still grabbing Skipper, and Skipper says, "Stop that. For goodness sakes, Gilligan, what you heard was me sawing this wood from this crate that washed ashore."
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, Skipper, there's writing on this wood."
You think the skipper would have looked for the writing there when he was fixing up the crate, wondering what it was in there?
I know, or they could have showed the words on the side of the crate, maybe, and that he had seen it, hadn't seen it yet. But you're right. Apparently, he was cutting or sawing it up without paying attention to what it said. But Gilligan points out, this is, "Look, from Harris Expedition." So Skipper takes a look at it to Singapore Zoo. Billy's Leo. Yeah, from Harris Expedition to Singapore Zoo. And here comes the professor. He says, "What are you gentlemen doing?" And then, "Hello, Professor. The printing from this crate I found in the lagoon." Well, it's a zoological classification. They ask him what those words mean. And Professor says it's the zoological classification for lion. Well, there must have been a lion in this crate. And as he says that, they hear a roar and they start panicking. And then they go running off, and Gilligan hides in the crate. I would imagine that crate probably would not be strong enough to hold a lion. Plus, with all those holes, there's a good chance that crate may have sunk. Now we have.
Well,
I heard,
I don't. I suppose that that crate should have probably sunk because wood floats, but even with 600 pound lion in there, that sunk.
yes. Sorry, bro. Everybody, every time I laugh, I start coughing. Okay, so we have our heroes out on an expedition trying to locate the lion. Gilligan, will you stop dragging your feet? And he says, "I'm sorry, Skipper." So they have a net. And he says, "If we don't get a move on, we'll never catch that lion." But unfortunately, they run into this tree. Of course, they're going to do that, of course. That old gag. Unfortunately, Gilligan accidentally runs into Mr. Howell's rear end with the pole.
Yeah.
The lion runs to lies. No, Gilligan, for goodness sakes, that was Mr. Howell. And they tell Gilligan to go back. Why doesn't he go back to the huts and stay with the ladies? And he says, if I go back to the camp, the girls will think I'm a coward. Besides, you guys know I'm not afraid of any old lion. Long claws, big white fangs, with big white teeth, and I'll meet you back in camp. And he does. He leaves and goes back to camp. So here we have the skipper saying, but it just doesn't work out. Some men just can't face up to the king of the beasts. And Professor says, now remember, that lion could be anywhere. You don't think it is, do you? So they're trying to figure out where it's at, of course. So I just suggest you get a hold of yourself. Gilligan's scared and he's all alone. And then Professor reminds him that animals can detect fear. So Skipper says, well, if you're concerned about him, here, I'll catch up with you fellas later. And George Skipper starts handing them all the gear and also heads back to the hut.
Yeah.
And Gilligan is scared by everything that he sees and hears. And the professor says, it's no use, Mr. Howell. This equipment is sort of bulky. That's right. And of course, Professor says that he's going to go back to the huts as well. Yes, right, you do that. And he hands all the gear to Mr. Howell. And of course, they hear another roar. And he says, was that you, little buddy? And there's no answer. And he screams, and as he does that, here comes the professor. And here's Mr. Howell talking to himself. Well, I might as well make myself comfortable after all. What can I do alone? And then he realizes he's alone and drops all the gear and heads back towards the huts.
Oh yeah, I was laughing, and everybody's just running in every which direction.
Right, in all the different directions, right. Because and all they can hear is bushes like crackling and footsteps. So they can hear each other pretty much. He's got me a green lion, and he's just stuck on the branch. And of course, Professor's trying to calm them down. Gentlemen, please, this is ridiculous. We've got to safeguard the island and protect the women. Every time a twig snaps, and then they hear more noise, and they all go running. And then, isn't it awful the way women have to sit and worry, they say. Usually I don't have to wait very long. And what if Mr. Howell catches a cold? And she says, oh, really, darling? Of course, the Howells are above catching colds. And she says, because they hear a roar. And they're thinking maybe one of them has a cold. And she says, no. And she says, must be my allergy. Oh, that's right, she sneezes. That's right. And she says, must be my allergy. And he said, what allergy is that? And she says, she's allergic to cats, my dear. They always make me. And then she sees in her mirror. Well, first they say cats. I haven't seen cats on the island. And Mrs. Howell looks in her mirror. And my mother used to have the exact same mirror. She got it from my grandmother when she died. I remember the gold and the leaf on it.
Hey, welcome, Sean.
Hello, Sean. Hey, good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Now, can we just say how beautiful that lion is? That is one beautiful lion.
Yeah, and I have to admit, though, and I'm glad they went to ever getting a real lion on the show and not some guy in a suit.
Yeah. Now, was that the Leo that MGM used?
Definitely not.
Leo? They just gave it the same name?
Yes. Because
Okay,
that lion that you saw in MGM, they had more over the years, but that was a completely different studio, so obviously a different lion. And that lion, depending on which one you're talking about, they shot that scene with the lion back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. So, yeah, they had different lions over the years, but it was a completely different studio.
Yeah. Well, I can see studios intermingling, loading crop. Well, we'll let you use our lion, but we want to use this prop in our shows. Swap it back and forth. I can see that.
Well, they have handlers they would hire. animal trainers. It was like we were talking about what we were talking about where they had 6 different cats. Oh yeah, that's right, Star Trek episode with the black cats, and they were talking about how they had like up to 6 different cats. Whenever they had animals, they would have like one animal that would be trained to like walk, one animal that would be trained to talk, to sit, one animal would be trained to do another stunt. So it's possible that I don't know. I just doubt very unlikely. They may have used the same trainer. That's possible.
Yeah, but no, I could. I would thought maybe they like for like live animals and all that they'd like trade them and stuff and that just to kind of like help each other out and then cost out for both studios.
Well, that's like there was famous bears that they used in movies, and it was one handler and trainer that used them for several different movies. So it's very possible. The only thing I don't know, honestly, was when they shot those MGM openers. I don't know how many they shot. I don't know how many lines they used or from who. I'm sure that's probably public knowledge. So the women saw the lion and it roared, and they all ran into their huts. And she's sneezing, and as she's doing that, the lion comes into her hut. And I thought this was exceptional too, because usually it's very difficult to get actors who want to work around lions and ferocious beasts like that.
I would.
But it's another old trope. They did it on I Dream of Jeannie and several other shows at the time. There's always a lion.
No,
What they
I
do
would.
is it.
I
Go
would
ahead.
definitely work with one there because I trust that they'd be well enough trained. Maybe a
Well,
fight here
it's
and
not
there,
trained,
but
but no, what they do, it's not. Well, it's training is part of it, but what they'd always do is make sure that the lion was very well fed before they go on camera, because you don't want a hungry lion. That was a big part of it. So on top of the training, the most important thing is to feed the lion as much as it wants to where it absolutely does not want any more. And then they'll bring him on before the actors. The girls are running back and they're talking about locking the door. And this is Hal's words that the lion's going to eat her furs. Let's go tell the men what we've done. So they're convinced they've got the lion trapped in there. And she says, "Oh, Thurston will be so proud of me." And they hear the roar. And we get an edit there. And he knocks on the hut and says, "It's me, Gilligan. Anybody?"
yeah, everybody just disappeared.
Right.
And here is Gilligan, oblivious as always.
And he goes into the Hal hut and he's blocking and barricading the door, but he doesn't see that the lion's behind him on the bed.
Well, notice that the girls forgot to do something. They
What's that?
barricade the door, but what else would they forget to barricade?
What's that?
The window.
They put the chair in front of it, didn't they?
No, Gilligan did that.
Well, that's true.
No, they left the window wide open, and the howls don't have
Yes.
like, anything on their window like the girls do, or the professor. Well, the professor I don't think has windows.
That's very possible. Yeah, good eye. I'm glad you caught that. They have a fan? No, I wonder how they power that. It must be hand powered.
Gilligan.
Probably so. Probably you hook up a pedal to it. So Gilligan makes sure that everything's secure, the door's blocked, the window's blocked, and he sits down. If he gets through there, he's going to have to find me, he says. And then he hears a snarling. Now, I'm going to play the video because I'm going to share what happened. Okay. Right there, during that scene, you saw where Gilligan jumped off the bed and ran towards the door, right?
Yeah.
In real life, when he did that, it spooked the lion. And the lion actually reached out and was only like an inch away from grabbing Gilligan. Or Don, the actor, Bob
Bob.
Denver. Bob Denver, right. But they cut that scene out. So you could actually see, I'm going to go back and play it one more time. So what actually happened was he's playing where he's sitting there. He hears the snarling, turns to look at the lion, and then when he leaps from the bed to run towards the door, it spooks the lion, and the lion actually reaches out and grabs him and almost did. He's only like an inch apart, or an inch away from Gilligan or Bob Denver, the actor. So the tamer, they always keep the tamer right off camera, seriously, right out of frame. When that happened, the tamer had to jump in and grab the lion because the lion does have a leash on it. Right now we can't see it because they have it covered, but it does have a leash. So basically, Bob Denver jumped off the bed. The lion tried to grab him, and the handler had to jump in and grab the leash before it grabbed him. And they said that it scared Bob Denver a lot. But they cut that out. That's what I wanted to show. You're going to see him jump. See, and you can barely see it for a split second, but you can see the lion kind of move its head. And now in this shot, they're not in the same shot. So this was shot at a different time here. Where you don't see the lion. And then the lion, now you see it separate from Gilligan. And then you'll see Gilligan at the door.
All right, can we catch up on chat real quick?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Holy crap. All right. PvP gives us a lion emoji. Then he says the crate would have sunk in the real world, but this is Gilligan's Island. Then we have Sean saying hello to everyone there. And PvP says, Howl's immune system too sophisticated to catch colds.
Of course.
Man, now I wish they used the guy in the lion suit. Germs would never go anywhere near a howl. The lion would, yeah, the lion. It's like, how dare they?
Exactly right.
The lion would have been owned by the trainer who hired the animals out to production companies.
Exactly. Same way they did bears and everything else.
Yeah. And I was saying, honestly, they did some crazy, dangerous stuff with animals in the 60s.
Yeah, these days they would have a glass separating them. That's how they did. Anybody seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? The famous scene where Indiana Jones and he's got he's in the pit with all the snakes. They had a piece of glass dividing them. Go ahead.
And that's what makes the 60s stuff way much better.
Yes.
Yeah, then they said, wonder if they have a guy with a rifle on set just in case.
Now that I don't know. And remember, even back then, they had the American Humane Society, so they're not going to want to have to kill an animal.
Was that PETA?
Yes.
Well, if you didn't know, I am part of PETA also. Only mine is people eating tasty animals.
Well, they're not going to complain. I remember when they protested Kentucky Fried Chicken. Of course, they lost.
Yeah.
Or KFC for you younger kids out there.
Yeah. So, Euler Greg says, probably a tranquilizer gun, if anything.
Yeah, but I don't know if the tranquilizer would be fast enough. What I would do, I would have it on a leash, and the leash tied to a pole or something that cannot be moved. And that way, even if it lunges out, it can't reach you. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell if the actor is moving.
Yeah. Lions are too majestic to use a window.
I didn't think about that. Could the lion fit through the window? Maybe.
Yeah, he can. If not, he'll get up on the thing and then he can just make his own door too.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
That's true.
PvP here says, could be Euler. Would need a powerful tranquilizer to be safe. The set wasn't safe either way. And PvP says, cats do have an instinct to chase anything running.
Yes.
That's a good point. All right, we're all caught up.
Right, or like the professor said, that animals do have the instinct when they know that you're frightened. But that's the reason why I explained scene by scene, because Bob Denver was so shaken that it took him a while for him to shoot a scene with the lion again. So that's why it's cut back and forth between Lion and Gilligan, Lion and Gilligan. Like right now, the lion's probably not there. So they shot the scene separately. They said that it took a while for Bob Denver to calm down because he realized how close he was to being snatched.
All right, I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Now, the reason why I want to point that scene out is I want you guys to notice that the way Gilligan is standing. So he basically says, "Oh, the lion is tame. The lion's okay. The lion didn't try to attack me." So he walks over and sticks his hand over for the lion to smell him. And the reason why I want to point this out is because this is obviously not Bob Denver. And you can see that he has. I'm going to play the clip. Hopefully, I won't get a copyright warning. But Bob Denver goes over, or I'm sorry, Gilligan, the character Gilligan, goes over, sticks his hand out, and the lion is sniffing it and starts licking the hand. But you'll see that it's the trainer and not Bob Denver, because you'll see he has his shoulder lifted to hide his face. And this is shot at a different time where Bob Denver is not in the room with the lion. Because like I said, that he was afraid of that lion after that scene, and it took a while to convince him to play with the lion again. So when we cut back to Gilligan and with the lion on the bed, that's not Gilligan, it's a stand-in.
Hey, that's not Gilligan on the screen?
That is not Gilligan, that is a stand-in. That's why he's got his shoulder lifted up like that to hide the face. Did you know? Because you can tell that he's really going out of his way to lift that shoulder and to not look at the camera. And then what they're doing is they're playing Bob Denver's voice over it. They're looping his voice over that actor. Then we can be pals, just like in the story, he says. So now he's saying that the lion has a thorn in his paw. And that maybe the lion is in pain. And he figures if he pulls out the thorn, maybe that'll help them to get along. But that's why they're shooting it like this. Because Bob Denver's not in the same room with the lion right now at this point. And he tells him remember the story about the lion with the thorn in the paw. Here goes now. And he says, be a nice lion. And he tells the lion that he's going to pull the thorn out. Gorilla, are you old enough to remember what story he's talking about?
The thorn? It's very familiar. It's just not at the tip of my tongue. I can't.
It's one of Aesop's fables, and it was called Androcles and the Lion.
Okay.
So a lion was in pain and upset, and a boy named Androcles stumbled across it, thought the lion was going to eat him, saw that there was a thorn in the paw, pulled the thorn out, and the two became the best of friends. Yeah, that's definitely the stand-in actor at this point. You can see, yeah, he's definitely hiding his face. Then we get Edit, and we get all the other passengers or castaways. And now the castaways don't know that Gilligan's befriending the lion, so they're talking about setting a trap for it. So they're going to set up that net, and they're going to open the door. And when he comes out, okay, so they're grabbing the net with the net, and they're all excited. Good work, wonderful, Skipper. And they realize it's actually Gilligan they trapped in the net. And then they said, no, we're trying to catch the lion. And he said, oh, I'll go in there and get him. And they say, no, no. And they hear the roar, and they all run. And they hide behind the tables. And see, here is after a while when they were able to get Bob Denver to work with the lion again and calmed him down. And calm down the lion. And he said, you don't have to be afraid. You see, he wants to make friends with you. Like even right there, that's the trainer holding onto the rope. That's not Bob Denver.
Okay.
And the lion is picturing each of the castaways as their food. So first they get a skipper who's supposed to be a cow. And then Mr. House says, I don't like the way he's looking at me either. And he's supposed to be like a wild boar, apparently, with a hat. First, and he's looking at me. And he's licking his chops. And the girls, this is what the girls are supposed to be looking like through the eyes of the lion.
Damn it, I want some venison now.
I like venison. Maybe now that I'm in Arizona, I could probably go hunting for it. I know in California it's nearly impossible to shoot a gun anywhere. So now the lioness sees the professor as an owl. Gilligan, that lion belongs in a cage. Well, Gilligan, he doesn't love us. And he's trying to explain to them that the lion is friendly. And now they're basically saying it's a choice. The lion has to go. So Gilligan says he's going to go with the lion. And Ginger says, you'd rather stay with us than go with the lion, wouldn't you? Yes, but I don't want him in a cage, says Gilligan. And of course, Mrs. Howell reminds him about her allergies and says, hurry before I break out in hives. And she's sneezing. And come on, Leo, we might as well go when he leaves. What do you know? He chose the lion. I wonder how long it'll be before the lion chooses him, says the professor.
Yeah.
Come on, Leo, good boy. Go ahead.
Oh no, looks like he's doing fine with the lion now.
He is now, but it took a day or so before they could do it. In fact, it delayed shooting. That's a good boy. Yeah, that's a good boy. And here's where he's feeding. This is why we were talking about earlier about the corned beef hash, because that's what Gilligan has in his hand, and that's what he's feeding the lion. And Mr. Howell brought Gilligan some lunch. He says, well, thank you, Mr. Howell. And he says, don't thank me. We drew straws and I lost.
Yeah.
And here's where Gilligan tells Mr. Howell that he's been training the lion and teaching him a few tricks.
Like how not to eat us?
Yeah, exactly, right? And of course, Mr. Howell panics. Gilligan's giving orders to the lion. And Mr. Howell, of course, is afraid, so he's doing the same thing. And we have the professor coming along that looks like she's picking fruit. I think those might be tomatoes.
Where? Wait,
That bush.
you got that picture of them?
Yeah, if I go back here.
Yeah, cherry tomatoes.
The morning is still about Gilligan, but no, he's over here showing Mr. Howell that the lion's been learning some of his tricks. And he explained to them that he's been feeding him the corned beef. And Gilligan's talking about how they could form a circus. And maybe Mr. Howell could pay for it. And first Mr. Howell says no, and he said, you'd be surprised how chippy it can be done. And he's saying that Gilligan could be the ringleader. And the circus would be Howl and Howl. Show presents Gilligan, the world famous lion tamer, direct from a command performance in London. And when he says that, the lion roars. And Gilligan realizes the lion's gone and says, we better find him. And here it is advancing. I'm sure Tina Louise was probably scared. I'm sure she had to be scared for that scene. And Gilligan sets in between them, down, Leo, down. Gilligan, thank you for saving my life. Yeah, for dessert. And now Gilligan telling her about how he'd like to form a circus. No, Ginger, he's going to be with us in a circus. You're looking at the star of Howl's show of shows. Yeah, you wouldn't look bad in tights. He's saying, Ginger could be part of the show. And she's like, what? And he says, yeah, you wouldn't look bad in tights yourself. She said, hey, you're right. Why don't you talk to Mr. Howell? Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Ginger, Queen of the High Wire, she says. And Gilligan, world famous lion tamer. And the lion leaves once again. And Gilligan says, I guess he's mad because we left him out. And now we have, of course, everybody's thinking they're going to be in the circus. So we have Mrs. Howell dressed like this. Oh, Thurston, darling, don't you think? Of course, Didn't get the word in between.
Yeah, he does that old famous stenciled on mustache. It's in the. I actually seen someone with an actual mustache like that with the rotating up. I went up and shook his hand and told him that was a best mustache I'd ever seen.
Were they like an actor in a show or something, or what?
No, no, some random guy at Walmart. He didn't know what
Wait,
the fuck
wait,
to say.
wait, you saw a guy at Walmart who had a painted on mustache?
No, not painted on. It's an actual mustache, but had the
Oh.
twirled up like Mr. Howell has it stenciled on.
Oh, yeah, that's called a handlebar mustache.
Yeah, the guy didn't know what the hell to do. He didn't know what was going on.
Uh, I see people that do it, and I think they look ridiculous, honestly. I know it used to be popular back in the 1800s, but when I see guys these days in the modern era, and they, by the way, you can buy what they used to call mustache wax, and they would stand like a woman does with her hair. They would stand there in the mirror for the longest time, training that mustache to be whatever shape they wanted, and they would put mustache wax on it to help it hold into shape. And like I said, it was a big thing in the old days, but when I see men do it now, and I do still see men every now and then with it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't usually try to be judgmental, but I think it just these days in the modern era, it looks ridiculous. But I'm not going to insult them
Hey, it's gotta have class somewhere.
because men are simple. Well, that's like in the old days; they would wear like three-piece suits, and most men back then they also had cream in their hair. You know, they always make sure their hair was combed and cut and combed perfectly. They'd have cream or some kind of gel to keep it in place. But things have changed. Men are more lax now. Everything's more like t-shirt and jeans. They let their hair grow out, and you'll see men with stubble where they haven't shaved lately. So standards have changed when it comes to men's clothing. Women are still pretty much the same. When most women still dress fairly nicely, they still put on makeup and all that stuff. And of course, Mrs. Howe's all excited because she can be part of the circus. And she wants to ride the horse, which of course I doubt she knows how to do.
Nah, that's I can see Miss Howell riding a very well trained horse there. That's a rich person too.
Well, yeah, but part of that act is they're riding the horse, then they have to stand up on the horse while it's going around the circle.
Oh, that part, yeah, she wouldn't be able to do, but
Exactly right. Because yeah, as I'm sure it looks great in a circus with somebody riding a horse, but that gets old fast. And part of the circus is that they do incredible stunts. So usually the person riding that horse will eventually get up on. In fact, what they'll do is they'll get up and they'll stand on the horse as it's going around in a circle, and then they'll have like a hoop, and they'll jump in and out and through the hoop while they're on the back of the horse, and all these other kind of stunts. Stand on their hands, things like that. Have you ever been to a circus?
yeah.
Okay. I know now they're pretty much extinct. They're phasing a lot of them out.
Oh, we still have
Because,
circuses around here.
yeah, but you won't have an elephant, do you?
Yeah, they do.
I don't know. I heard that they passed new laws where they're not allowed to have elephants anymore.
Oh, there's a reason I'm advocate for the Second Amendment, I guess.
Well, and what the main reason too, there's a documentary available, and it's called "An Apology to Elephants," and it's hosted by Lily Tomlin, and it shows behind the scenes of circuses where they would be constantly beating the elephant and whipping it to get it to do what they wanted it to do. And as anybody knows, you can find videos where the elephant just says, "Oh, screw this, I've had enough." And the elephant will go on a rampage and start killing people, and that's happened before. So with all the issues, they finally just banned circuses having elephants. There
Well,
used to be a bit. Go ahead.
well, and they'd be very upset with what Nikolai Tesla and Thomas Edison did to a couple elephants.
No, what I'm talking about is more recent than that.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was doing Uber in California, I'm guessing this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I went to pick up a ride. I'll make this quick, guys. I'm sorry it's off topic. But I went to pick up a ride, and it was by a train station area. It wasn't by like Amtrak, the kind of trains we all ride on. All this was the trains that usually haul freight, so like Southern Pacific or whatever. So I went and picked up a guy, and I thought that's odd to have somebody out here. So I thought maybe it's a guy who works on a train. And what it was actual. It was a circus, and they still were using trains to go travel from city to city. And it was the big circus. It was the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, the biggest one in the world, the most famous. And I'm a big circus fan, big buff. When I was a kid, I wanted to join one, and I was a big fan of P.T. Barnum, the guy who founded Barnum and Bailey Circus. And I read a lot of his autobiographies. So anyway, I picked up this guy, and I said, "Wow, you work for a circus?" And he said, "Yeah." And then I immediately started asking him a bunch of questions and all this about circus and what's it like and all this. And he was telling me, he goes, "Yeah, this is the last year," he said, "because they're having to get rid of elephants, and they've been taking away so many acts because of people getting injured." He said they were going to start shutting down the circus because once they start taking away a lot of the big exotic animals, they start selling less tickets. So he was telling me, yeah, it was the last tour they were doing that year. And I remember I said, "Good luck." And then I saw all the other circus performers sitting around tables. And I thought that was interesting. It kind of reminded me of the old-fashioned days. But yeah, I remember he was saying that was the last tour for Ringling Brothers Circus. Anyway, back to Gilligan's Island.
All right. PvP says, I figured that was from a fairy tale. That's all the chats.
Yes, Androcles and the Lion, which was actually a fable. So here's where Gilligan says, "I'm out of corned beef. I hope you don't think I'm going to be corned beef soon." And then that's why we saw the scene where there was a big giant can of corned beef here. So that they had like kind of superimposed that in. And Gilligan's worried that the lion's going to get hungry. "I don't like that look in your eye," he said to the lion. And here it says, "Here, finish the rest of it. Every bit of it. Go ahead, just eat the whole can." And she says, "Professor, my wash tub is..." Marianne comes in and says, "Professor, my wash tub is gone." And he says, "Yes. Well, I think Gilligan's using it for his lion." And she says he's giving him a bath, and he says, "No, he's using it for a perch in his Lion Tamers Act. He's going to be the star of the circus now." He's telling her about the circus. This I'm confused because believe me, like I said, I've read a lot about the circuses. And the leader of the circus, I've never heard of the leader of the circus being called the prime minister. As far as I know, they've always been called the ringleader. But I could be wrong. Maybe if anybody out in the chat can correct me.
I think the professor was making a joke.
I think it possibly is because I've never heard of them referred to as that. Yes, the whole show of shows. As a matter of fact, Gilligan, I don't know if Gilligan realizes it, but Gilligan was saying that he's going to be running the circus. But in actuality, Mr. Howell is the one dressing up as the ringleader. The ringleader is the one that has the coat, the tails, and the fancy mustache. And I think Gilligan's just strictly supposed to be only the lion tamer, who is just one of the acts. And now Skipper says he took some of his wooden planks. And Marianne says, "Yeah, he took my wooden tub too." "And for what?" She says, "His circus act." He says, "What?" She said, "His circus act." And he said, "Just haven't explained that to Skipper." And she says, "Don't do anything rash." "I'm not going to do anything rash, Marianne. I'm fed up with Gilligan and his ideas." And of course, Gilligan continues to try to train the lion. But Gilligan, Marianne wants her tub back. And Gilligan says, "What about the circus?" And he says, "Well, Gilligan, you and that lion have caused enough trouble already. Skipper, you just don't understand." And he says, "Me? Oh, Gilligan, there's enough clowns on this island already. I want my planks back." And the lion roars again, and he says, he thinks you're mad at me.
I am mad at you.
Well, and then he says, well, can't you tell him that we've been buddies for a long time? And tell him that I'm the skipper and that I'm used to giving commands. And of course, immediately cuts and we have the skipper practicing a juggling act as a clown, which I'm going to mention really quick because I'm sorry I can't avoid it. But for anybody who's been to a circus, usually the clowns don't talk. Usually they do mime acts where they act, they do a lot of expressions with their face, and they do juggling with balls or bowling pins. But back in the old days, like the 1800s, they used to actually talk and tell jokes to the audience, which they don't do anymore. That's something that's a lost art. Up about this was funny. Marianne comes in and says hello to Skipper, and of course he drops the coconut, which is perfect timing. And she says, "What are you doing?" Well, believe it or not, I'm trying to learn how to juggle, but I just don't seem to get the hang of it. He says. So now everybody, of course, wants to be in the circus act. And she said, "Well, I like you, but I wouldn't know what to do." And he says, "You can be my assistant." He says for the hatchet throwing contest. And
Yeah.
he puts her up against the wall, and she says, "Are you very good at it?" Well, I couldn't be any worse at that. And of course, when he says that, she obviously takes off.
Yeah, I was
And you
laughing so hard at that when she just walked away.
exactly right. I wouldn't volunteer as well. And Gilligan realizes that all the corned beef is gone. He says, "Oh, no more corned beef." And the lion roars. And he says, "You just keep talking." And of course, he interrupts the skipper again, and who drops the coconut on his foot again. And he says, "Skipper, where's the other extra case of corned beef?" And he says, "What extra case?" And he says, "We don't have any more." And he says, "Well, how am I going to train Leo?" And then he hears where the professor comes by, and they tell him they're out of food. Well, we've got to build the cage quickly. But there's a lot of other food on the island, and he tells them fruits and vegetables. But we all know that lions are carnivores. They eat meat. They don't eat fruits and vegetables. So they say we've got to cage that lion. And once again, he drops a coconut on his foot. And he says, "Look at this mess. I'll clean it up. And maybe the island will get back to normal." So Skipper starts to take everything apart. And here comes the lion. But I can't play too much because I don't want to get a copyright warning. This is the part.
Yeah.
Skipper sees the lion approaching. So he takes the tub and hides underneath it. There we go.
Well, if you get one, I'll help you out with it. But CBS is notorious for just letting them expire.
I don't know. Like I said, I've got one that they didn't let it drop, and it's still on there. The moment then where they were, um, Skipper got hit on the head, and he thought everybody on the island were Japanese. That's the one they no matter. But you and I worked on it together. I sent back them asking them to please drop it, and they did not.
No, Warner Bros. Maybe I'd have to see what we wrote about it. But I've
It's
learned a
been
couple things from since then on copyright warnings. Also,
it's been so long too. I don't know if we can still look up what I wrote. See, that's what I meant about Mr. Howell, the way he's dressed. He's dressed as the ringleader, the person who actually runs the circus. Other than the shorts, the ringleader obviously has a full tuxedo. Oops, and now we have a cage. I, considering that's made out of bamboo, I still wouldn't trust it, but oh well. Look at poor Leo Skipper. Well, you had to do it, little buddy. After all I've done to him, he still loves me. Gilligan says, "I don't know whether I can come back as soon as he falls asleep." And sun sets. and they're going to feed him. I got this plate of food for Leo, he says. Well, you better start swimming if you want to feed that lion, huh? He says, and the raft and all, and there it is floating out in the lagoon. The tide must have come in last night, says the skipper. Or you can relax now, buddy. Yes, and there goes our circus. Yeah, I guess I learned how to be an expert juggler all for nothing. I don't know, I somehow doubt that he learned juggling that fast. That actually takes a long, long time to be a master juggler. Oh, come
I
on,
could
Skipper.
do I could do a little bit of juggling.
There used to be a famous comedian who made movies back in the old days. Silent. I'm talking about silent and then the early sound movies called W.C. Fields. And his act in the movies was that he was a drunk and he hated kids. But he was very funny. He's very funny, so don't get me wrong. But his true act from vaudeville was he was a master juggler. And he could juggle almost anything. There's videos of it on YouTube for any old people out there who remember the name. Just look up W.C. Fields juggling. And he says, you watch this. He's going to show Gilligan. And he got coconuts. Watch this, Gilligan. And he begins juggling. And obviously there's somebody above him out of camera range who's grabbing the coconuts and dropping them. And here's what he said, I sworn I had 3 coconuts. And there we go with another one. And it hits him on the head, of course. And later that evening, and we have the radio. A United States destroyer reports it has just rescued a full-grown Nubian lion floating in a crate. Thousands of miles from any known land. But he did consume 36 pounds of corned beef. So somehow they knew how much the lion had eaten. And Skipper says, well, will you please go to sleep? He says, now what's the matter? And he says, well, what am I going to do with this whole plate of corned beef? So I guess they still had a little bit left over. And Skipper roars. And Gilligan shoves some in his mouth. And then we get our closing credits. And we're going on 2 hours and 22 minutes. I hope that's not too long for some of you guys, because I know it's a little late at night for those that have to work tomorrow. And there we are. Conclusion of our second episode.
All right, so I'll catch up on chats here real quick.
Thank you, sir.
All right, BB says, I remember when the circus shut down, yet was very sad. Glad I saw lots as a kid, yeah? Thinking it was ringleader as in 3 Ring Circus. Clouds juggled and did acrobatic tricks too. They still do. So Leo floats out to sea on a raft and slowly starves to death. Then he's smiling. Oh, never mind.
All right, that's why they had to have the radio report, letting us, the audience, know that it was rescued.
Yeah. Yeah, he says, oh, I should have known they'd have a happy ending. All right, that's all the chats.
Thank you. And, of course, you got to have a happy ending. It's a family show. And as a reminder, everyone, I did put a poll in the chat. Please vote. And if you feel like it, let us know which episode, or you can vote on which episode you like the best or our coverage, the stream of which episode. And I'll be closing that here momentarily, and then I'll share the results with everybody. But before I do that, what about you, Gorilla? Which of the 2 episodes did you enjoy the most?
Oh, the lion one for sure. It wasn't full of the same tropes. It was just hilarious with the whole lion thing and everybody being scared of a lion. I actually got to pet a lion though.
Where was that at?
Yeah, it was actually in a cage there. Is it like an actual cage there? They're getting ready to move it to a different enclosure. So it was in a cage so everybody could still see it and all that. And of course, they had that do not get too close to the cage thing on there. But us being kids there, we went up and we was actually petting it.
I give credit for that. I don't know if I would have done that.
was a pretty friendly lion, well fed.
There is a YouTube video where these people are messing around in front of a lion, and this guy's doing that. He's sticking his hand in there, and the lion grabs his hand with his mouth, and the guy's having to use his feet to pull away from it. And the lion strips his fingers clean. The guy's
Well,
barely able to get his fingers out of the mouth.
that falls under fuck around and find out.
Language, please.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, it's something that I wouldn't try. So, tell us about your channel, Gorilla.
Well, I got a lot of things on hiatus right now. I'm trying to do more shorts and all that, uh, but once we get into November, I'll have more time to do more streams. I'm gonna do more open panel stuff, open topics there.
Nice. And
But
I do appreciate you having the panels when I was not feeling so well, because it gave everybody a place to go and hang out. So I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, not a problem there. And but so I should have Babylon 5 on Saturday, depending on how late we go out selling and stuff. And then I will definitely have we're rewatching Loon Lake there for PvP on Sunday because he's never seen it there, and
Cool.
now it'll be a chance to tell him the history of the only film ever filmed in our area. But yeah, I'll try to stream whenever I can, but no promises.
Understandable. Oh, but you did have a streaming, the stream of Poltergeist 3, is that right?
Yeah, we already had that.
Okay, my question is, what part did that, the lady who was visiting your channel, I can't remember her YouTube name, but do you remember what part of the movie she was in?
She was just getting off the escalator in the mall. They're right at the top of the escalator. It was very briefly. You blink and you miss it moment.
Now, where in the movie? Beginning, middle, end? What would you say?
Beginning-ish. About 15, 20 minutes in.
I'll have to remember that next time I watch that movie, then. That's
Yeah.
very cool, and that's cool that you had her on your channel.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys ask her if she got paid anything? I know that's kind of an embarrassing question, but I doubt it.
No, she didn't. She actually did say a line in the movie, but they cut it because then they'd have to pay her royalties.
Yes, they would, right. Right, because a lot of times they get volunteers to do the background stuff. You're exactly right. If they say anything, they've got to pay them. Like from Star Trek 4, when they were saying, the nuclear vessels across the bay in Alameda. And when that lady says, yeah, I think they're across the street in Alameda, they had to chase her down and have her sign a paper and all about a waiver and had to pay her and all that garbage.
Just for one line you paid? I would love that.
Yes. Because they weren't expecting her to talk and answer back, because most of the people were just ignoring the actors when they were saying, do you know where the nuclear vessel? And most of the people were just walking by because they saw the cameras and the director and all that. But that lady actually spoke up and said, I think they're across the bay in Alameda. And they weren't expecting that. But they liked the scene so much, they decided to keep it, and they chased her down and got her autograph. Or her permission. Release, I guess it's called release. And I would say I agree with you. I enjoyed the second one the most. I enjoyed them both. I liked them. But yes, I like the second one was funny. It was nice to get an actual lion on there with the castaways. The way they reacted, it was pretty good. Me too. I would definitely give it a thumbs up. And it was my favorite of the two. And I'm hoping I'm going to do my best to be up for the rumblings from the live stream on Saturday. I've got treatment tomorrow. My doctor will see what. In fact, I've got 2 appointments tomorrow. I'm going to be all day getting chemo treatment, which is I'm not looking forward to it. It's no fun. And then Friday, I have to go get an MRI and X-rays and all that garbage in my head because of that tumor they took out. But I'm hoping to be up for Thursday's rumblings from the live stream. And I should be back for Monday's Lost in Space at 6 p.m. Pacific. And Tuesday night, we're going to be covering John Carpenter's The Thing, which is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So I'll be posting that in a reminder in my community tab on my channel to remind everybody. And I'll also place a link in there where you can find it. So you don't have to pay some online service or pay for it to see it somewhere. And now I'm going to close the poll in the chat. And then I'm going to share that Go ahead.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll read the chat.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
PvP says I voted for the lion as missed most of the first episode. Yeah. No
Very
Walt
cool.
Friday, I assume, Gorilla. If I do Walt, it'll probably be a later stream, probably around 7:45, 8 o'clock, if that's all right. Then he says, if you're an extra, you might just get a free lunch.
Yeah, sometimes they'd have bag lunch and stuff like that, right? Especially if you were going to be there all day.
Yeah, and the thing is awesome.
I'm excited. It'll be perfect. I love Halloween, and that's what I think should be great. I've been on a few streams where they were asking me, so what movies you can do for Halloween? And I'd say, well, I'm going to do The Thing. Oh, well, I already covered The Thing. And they would say, I'm like, so? I don't care if you covered The Thing. I'm going to cover it anyway. And besides, I'm sure mine's going to be the best one. I hate to be partial, but, I like to cover a lot of the background material on The Thing. And I think it's going to be a blast. I think I'm going to look at the history and some of the. I've had the DVD of The Thing, which had the commentary tracks of John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. So I'll be sharing some of that info from what they shared about the behind the scenes and making of and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be it'll be a blast. Like the Jurassic Park last night, it was really fun, and everyone was excited. I think it'll be a good time too when we do The Thing next week. Is that all the chat?
Yes. Oh, PvP says that's fine. A little bit later is cool. Okay. That's all the chat.
All right. So, poll results. Which episode did you enjoy the most? 62%. Oh, I guess they thought differently. 62% said ship a hoax, and we got 37% said feed the kitty, with a total votes of 8 votes. Very cool. Thank you for voting, everybody. I appreciate that. All right, there we go. Okay, so once again, I want to remind everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you had a good time, and I hope it's not too late for you. I was trying to keep tonight's stream a little short. I know I kind of went off topic too many times tonight, and I do apologize for that. I get carried away.
So did I.
Especially when oh, well, that's fine. But like with circus, I mean, I could go on and on talking about the circus because I'm, like I said, a big fan. But most of all, I want to thank you, Gorilla, for helping me out tonight. And I really appreciate you doing the chats. And Suzanne, I hope you're doing well. And I guess I didn't get a chance to find out if Stream Elements was showing Suzanne's link or not. So I apologize for that. But I will pay attention to my next stream. The Rumbling from the Lab on Saturday. I'll pay attention to find out if it's showing her link or not. It better be, because I know I thought I programmed it. But
yeah, you did. I know you did.
Perfect. Excellent. And everybody, Suzanne is a single grandmother taking care of her grandson. If you get a chance, please help her out. She has that fundraiser, and she's very deserving. It's not an easy job when you're struggling from paycheck to paycheck, and especially when you have to feed somebody else as well. So, yeah, if you can, anything you can to help her is highly appreciated. So, with that, have a great night, everybody, and I will see you soon on the next stream. Drive safe tomorrow.